Nothing on this show is authorized by the Food and Drug Administration, and nothing said here is intended to treat, cure, prevent, or diagnose any disease. Contact your physician before starting a diet or exercise regimen, including supplementation. This is not medical advice and is for entertainment purposes only.
Joey, you should go back and listen to that song. I think you'd really like it.
Yeah.
It's down your alley.
Do you not know that song?
No, I haven't listened to any of the new album yet.
That's the first song on the album, and I heard some people aren't really crazy about this album, but I was listening to that, and it's got like a real like soft intro, and I was like, where's this going? And I was worried they were going to get away from metal, and then they had that's like 45 seconds into the song. It's like,
yeah. Then the rest of the album's pretty soft.
yeah, it is, yeah. But I think we might need that sometimes.
No, it's good. It's a good one. I would highly recommend it. Just came out 2 days ago. It is Sunday. We're doing a Mother's Day special.
Shout out to all the moms.
Really shout out to all the moms. I did most of my Mother's Day stuff Friday.
I called my mom this morning from Joey's backyard.
Nice.
I need to call my mom.
Yeah.
From my own backyard.
Can I do a double fist?
So what did y'all do there last night? Well, first of all, we got Ben here. Ben was in town, so we said, hey, let's do a podcast.
Ben's the official Duncan Trussell of the Suppworks podcast.
I'm so proud of that.
It's just a regular occurring. We have something we're going to talk about, by the way. We've got some topics, but we can shoot the shit for a minute first.
Yeah, last night was funny. We sat down and Joey's like, what are we going to talk about tomorrow? And we did, we herbed up and talked about it, but I feel like we've been doing this for a long time. We've been doing this since 2020. Yep. And we don't really ever need a topic because we have our own things going constantly.
I know they should just follow us around 24/7 for a podcast. Remember when we took that Uber to Valencia and the Uber driver was like, y'all are awesome. It's like, y'all just talk about ideas all day. We're like, yeah, that's basically what we do.
And then sometimes we decide to do them.
Sometimes we get paid for them.
Yeah, and then there's that.
The key is to get paid for all of them. But, it's like a batting average.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is like, I'm sorry, I'm going to double fist today. Sometimes the ones we don't get paid for are the most rewarding ones.
Yeah.
Personally. Maybe not.
I feel like they're planting seeds. Eventually we'll end up getting paid for like all this stuff.
Yeah, I really believe in karma with this stuff. I feel like maybe not even like as a legitimate like karma, but like we put enough good things out in the world. I mean, how many times have you guys gotten compliments or just like people that just loved Expo Energy?
Still do.
Yeah.
And it's not dead.
Yeah.
I don't know where the cans keep coming from.
That's my favorite thing right now. We go to shows and people bring me a can.
Yeah.
That means a lot to me because you guys know.
There was a guy that has a supplement store right around the corner from here, and he wanted to do like a project, and so he came here. Remember, we were talking to him.
Yeah.
And he was like, just trying to give us some, he was like, I didn't know y'all were so close, so he just kind of showed up. I gave him Expo Energy. I was like, here, try this, see what you think. And like he's texted me like every couple of weeks, like once a week, he'd be like, hey, where do I get more of that? And I'm like, well, you can go buy Rev 7 now.
Isn't that the question? Yeah.
It's close.
Yep.
Rev 7 is close. At first, I kind of rejected the idea that it was close because like there was so much shit in Expo Energy. And I'm like, it's not close, but it really is like the core.
Yeah.
No offense to the people that aren't in it, but like it really is the core of what we wanted in that experience.
Yeah.
And it's caffeine free, or it's stimulant free entirely, which is what's so fun about it. I can drink 3 a day.
Yeah.
I drink those before bed sometimes.
Yeah. I drank half of one and gave the other half to my son. It's ketones and cognizant. Like, it's good for him.
I love that you feed your kid supplements.
He likes it.
I mean, what guy doesn't, Like that's really cool.
He likes it, so.
But you asked us what we did last night.
You want to show him your cold drink?
Yeah.
Your camera's here.
My camera's right here. I'm double fisting a little bit. So we were up until, 2:30 this morning?
Yeah.
I looked at Joey, and he made the mistake of showing me his lab. I forgot the thing existed in the house. We were just, hanging out, and he was like, come look at this shit. And I was in there. I was like, I can't believe you don't make content in here every single day.
It's this little secret room. In his
Yeah.
house, yeah. You got all this stuff. It's hard to do. You got to set up cameras and lights and microphones. You got to record it, and you got to edit it, and then.
And I get 50 emails in the time that it would take to do all that.
I feel so seen right now.
Yeah.
It sounds like and I think everyone thinks it's really easy to just make content.
Well, then you turn it on, and then you're like, oh, well. And then you just kind of get deer in the headlights.
Like, I can
lot
talk
do
to
that.
you about this, but you can't taste it, so you're not going to understand this path that we're going on.
And that was where that whole thing went, because I said to him, I said, I've visited flavor houses. I have a really great partner in Sensapure. I've always asked a lot of people, like, can you teach me flavoring? And it's always, I respect the art, but I want to know the fundamentals. Just take me through it and teach me it. And even through that, I learned even further that it would never make good content. Like, he had me doing the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And the experience of it, doing it myself, that would never translate on video.
Yeah, we've actually filmed him flavoring stuff
With Tariffs.
hundreds of times.
I remember it.
Yeah.
I love Tariffs. That video wasn't interesting because I don't mean to say
You really
that.
have to cut it up because it's a lot of trial and error. It's like, does that taste? No.
Yeah.
That's bad.
And that was what we did, because I wanted to understand each component itself as a variable against a control.
Yeah.
We should have filmed that last night. I actually filmed like 45, maybe 75% of it on my Ray-Bans,
that's
as
cool.
I was doing it. So I'm excited about that. But, acids, sweeteners, flavoring systems, dosages of them, and what happens when you change that. And then when we finally had the full finished product, which is this here, then we
Let him
remade
have a little snap of that.
Then we remade it natural. This is Martian mango energy.
It's beautiful. Look at the color. The color of it. The subtle thickness of it. That's an interesting taste. What is this?
It's mango.
No, is it just a drink or?
Yeah, it's just a drink.
Yeah, it's not functional. It's flavored colored water.
Kind of has like something creamy about it. It's kind of creamy.
But when we were going through it, I'm just like, you need to understand each individual thing. And like, it started with like acids. And I had my little chart that shows like the acids that are predominant in fruits. And I'm like, look at this and think about this. Because this is what's like naturally occurring in each one of these things. Like how we were talking with Easton on the porch about this. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about the citrus fruits, the orchard fruits, the berries, and how they have acids that go with each one of them. And he picked mango out of his entire list because obviously
It's me.
yeah, Ben loves mango. But it also had a unique acid profile amongst all of them because there was a little bit of citric and malic and tartaric acid inside of mangoes, which was unique to that because most of them didn't have as many different acids inside of the fruit.
So like to start, it's so funny. Mango is the perfect. We didn't plan
You
that
picked
at
a
all.
good example.
It was a great example because mango should be a citric acid because it's a citrus. But I wanted to know what if we made it with malic acid, right? So what if we make it with the wrong thing? Because it's still an acid. It's still, you said, I think you can trick your mind into tasting. You're like, okay, that's still a mango. Mm-hmm. So we finished the whole thing, and then we went back. We're like, well, okay, what if we stuck with the malic acid? This was the blend.
We tried it that way, and then we twisted it with some citrus.
Because mango itself is a citrus, but naturally it is citric and malic acid.
And tartaric.
And tartaric.
Yeah, it's
This has
very
tartaric.
different of a fruit than the other citrus.
And that's what's so cool about this is
Just the makeup of it, like the physical structure of it is different than.
Because it has a pit.
Yeah, and it's also a lot more mushy and juicy. I don't know. Like
it has like a very thick, but it also is very watery.
think of like a lime is very structured.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's fiber.
Yeah, but mango is all fibrous, but it's not as structured. It seems
Soft.
Like. It's super
Yeah.
soft. Yeah.
One of my favorite experiences I've had was going to the Fit Expo in Colombia. Next year, I want the three of us to go to that. This is my favorite show I've been to. That's hard to say, but like going to a foreign expo. Have you guys been to a foreign fitness expo?
Nope.
Going to one in Colombia is very cool. First off, because like if you ever watch like movies in Cuba, they have like Chevys from 20 years ago. That's what they're like with sports nutrition. If you walk around, you're like, Dymatize is a fucking 40 by 40. What the fuck? But I distinctly remember outside the fitness expo walking out and buying a fresh mango off of just a
truck.
yeah. And the guy like cut it up and put it in a cup for me. It was the freshest mango I've ever had in my life. They like picked it that morning.
Nice.
Like fresh fruit is insane. So
Yeah.
Anyway, we were up till 2:30 making this because I wanted to have it for the. I lobbied to have for all of us, but it was 2:30 in the morning.
Got pretty tired. Dude, I went home and went right to bed.
I believe you.
I was fucking cooked.
If I was alone, I would have been asleep.
We had a long, long day yesterday of all kinds of debauchery and
What'd you
fun.
do, Ben?
So I'm in town for the C4 Alpha Bomb launch at Alpha Land, which I hate to talk about your guys' old employer, but I have to tell you guys.
I'm a big fan of C4 stuff.
I believe, and that's probably wrong of me to say, but
I guarantee they put on a hell of a show.
They always do.
I've been thinking a lot about it this morning because I have to do my post for this, obviously. But how old is Cellucor as a company?
Over 20 years.
Yeah, like early 2000s, like 2001 probably.
Remember at the Bev Forum panel, Doss has been CEO for 20 years now.
Right.
And he became CEO when it was like 7 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
And this event was one of the top events I've ever been to. In 2025, over 20 years old, they pulled off this event that was like,
Yeah, they're basically a legacy brand now, but they don't kind of optics like one.
and it's funny. I've been like working on the caption for LinkedIn, and as I that's like these are some of my thoughts. Like you guys can kind of see it like kind of probably come together in my brain today. But it's a legacy company that a lot of people counted out.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, when they went to beverage, it's almost like powders and supplements sort of kind of took a back seat. But I think they're trying to make an effort to make it
yeah.
fun again. I think
Yeah.
they're doing that.
I don't know how much like the internal dialogue I can talk about. I have an NDA, but like that definitely matches. And I think at Bev Forum he talked about this kind of transparently. Is that like when they went into beverage? I mean, when you go into beverage, I've talked about this a lot. You have to have a beverage team. If you don't have a beverage team, you're going to fail. Beverage is such a different distribution.
Yeah, it's very complicated
Right.
in retrospect to, in regard to like, in contrast to, that's the better word, to
Yeah.
the pills, powders.
And the payout is much larger. So why wouldn't you invest into that, right?
Yeah, but you got to understand DSD networks, DSD contracts, distribution is totally different. The volume and the margin is completely different. The promotional strategy is completely different.
Yeah. I mean, the product itself is insanely more expensive to ship. It's heavy.
Yeah, in the way that you embrace product is different because, and like the powder functional sports nutrition, most people, I would say, most people who probably listen to this are thinking, they're like Joey's, are thinking, how can I innovate on the formula side? Whereas like on beverage, it just really needs to taste really good and be priced to move well. And then you have to have that distribution first. And then you can say, where do we do something different to differentiate?
The interaction with the product is a lot different. This is a one-time deal. Like how you experience this product acutely matters so much.
Yeah, brand story matters a lot more, I think.
And then, with the powder, you have a 30-day commitment and you develop a relationship with it over time and find out if you want to buy it again. And, an energy drink can be much more casual or transactional.
I love this conversation so much because the last time I was on here, which was your guys' first guest episode, I kind of brought up the fact that I think that we all see our industry through our own lenses. You see it through branding, Joey sees it through formulas. And in that episode, Joey brought up, he thought that Bang won because it was 300 milligram caffeine. Even like the economics,
At the right dose, or at the right price.
And I don't disagree with that, but that is like so much your lens and your perspective as a formulator.
Yeah.
Right. And you bring up brand experience because that's your lens. And I think those are things it's all truth, right? You gonna let your dog
I'm going to
out?
let Piper out for a second. Yeah. No, go ahead.
But as far as all these things are factors that make a good product.
Yeah. Well, what's so cool about that is that was like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And then we came out with a can.
And I think we checked a lot of those boxes.
We did.
Have you seen the one-off fuck up?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that one was a misprint. It is one of one. The Blue Expo Energy.
The Blue Expo Energy.
And that was part of the inspiration behind the BevNet Energy.
Yeah, but 1 in 50,000, right?
Yeah.
Not bad. My point being that we all learned from that, right? Between us having that episode where we all kind of compared our notes on why we think cans work, we did it. And I think we all not changed our minds, we all evolved. And now we're talking about this here. And I totally agree with you. It is transactional because someone will buy one can. Right?
And they're not necessarily loyal. Like they'll go to C4 the next day, a Celsius the next day, a Jocko the next day.
Yeah, but there is potential for loyalty, and I think whether or not you win that loyalty is based on a bunch of different things, but it is really based off of a first impression. Like I think Jocko has experienced this. Their first cans
Was not good.
I will never say that about Jocko. I think they have a lot. I think they've done so much, but the flavor left.
No, I love them. I love that company.
Yeah, the flavor left a lot to be desired, and I think they've really they've understood that because those guys. I don't know anyone that's as data driven as they are. You know, they do a lot. They do a lot of study on what consumers think about them, and I think they found. I don't want to speak for them, but you know, I know that they've done these studies. They found that people had a big impression about that flavor experience. I love that they're sticking to the natural flavors and sweeteners and stuff like that. But
you can't put botanicals in a product like that.
Yeah.
Well,
you told me that in 2020, and
it's vastly improved. It's very good now.
Yeah, and so like I think they've had to like start from the beginning again and give a full consumer experience. But there were a lot of consumers that experienced the first version, and that's the first impression that counts, right? Flavor, I think, matters more than anything. Or
well, you even tried it last night. The comparison of natural sweetening versus artificial.
And which was so cool because like once we finished the sucralose version, we put that to the side. And we're like, okay, now let's do the same thing with natural sweeteners. And we got to the point where we're like huffing our own farts. We're like,
this is good. This is great.
So good. This is so good. And then we put them next to each other. And I made the description to him, like, you know, you try the natural one. You're like, that's so good. That's amazing. You remember the end of V for Vendetta when they blow up Parliament and Overture of 1812 plays? And that was tasting the sucralose one afterwards. Like, you're like, what the fuck was wrong with us? Like, why did we think the naturally sweetened one was good? Because it was good, but that Pedro Pascal meme where it's like, life is good, but it could be better.
Yeah.
That's sucralose. It's just a sweetener.
But
everything else is the same. The flavor, the acids.
Well, there's a topic because it's going away.
There's rumor that it's going away.
Sucralose?
All right, I'm just going to say this. Audience, Joey predicted DMAA going away. He changed out DMAA in the original C4 for synephrine, and now we have C4 today, right? You know, everyone knows what C4 is. Joey sees things before other people see things. It makes him very good at what he does. We were talking about other things that you've done that too. And
I've also had a lot of ingredients that I've formulated suddenly become illegal.
Yeah.
Or banned or just no longer widely accepted by people.
I'm sorry if I'm ignorant to this, but why do you think sucralose is going away?
So heard rumor that there's this lady, she's a PhD somewhere in South Carolina. She's done a lot of research on sucralose, and I think she's starting a bunch of class action lawsuits or something about sucralose. And because of that, there's a lot of pressure on a lot of companies to swap from sucralose to go to stevia.
So you're just talking about pressure in the industry. You're not talking about legislation.
Well, right now, there's no real good clinical data, right?
I think she may have that data.
To say it's bad. I have a hot take here. I think there's more data against stevia than there is against sucralose.
And that's also what I brought up. Because a lot of people hate stevia too.
But there's more compelling data that stevia is not great for you.
So even if we go down this path and, okay, sucralose is a bad guy. It's gone. And then stevia eventually will become a bad guy. And then it's gone. And where have we come back to?
Sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll have these low calorie, zero sugar sweeteners. We'll be going from here to here and then back to square one. And then Coca-Cola is the cool guy again.
So Joey has a hunch that you're going to see a lot more naturally flavored, naturally sweetened stuff. I mean, we already knew that,
but you're just talking like pressure in the industry.
Be careful that you don't jump on the slippery slope back to sugar.
Like a trend.
Yeah. Like I'm just, if we end up going back that way, it's like, okay, fine. You know, and then we're taking fluoride out of the water, sugar back in the drinks, and then next thing you know, we all have British teeth. No offense, my UK friends.
Yeah, but he's talking from like a legislation point of view.
But you are talking. I was going to say, I don't think you're talking legislation. You're just talking pressure in the industry to
right. Because if there's class action lawsuits and stuff, like there might not be any laws against it. It's just in the court of public opinion that all of a sudden sucralose is a bad guy.
You know why? This is a very interesting thing, and there's really no way to know right now because it's all like speculative.
That's just why I say when Joey says something, he's onto a hunch. You should probably listen.
What do you think about like all the pressure from like the Cokes and Pepsis though? Like those guys can.
They make zeros of everything, but you know what they use? Sucralose.
That's my point. Yeah, like they use a lot of sucralose.
I honestly don't think they'll give a shit when it comes down to it. They'll be like, we're gonna ride or die with sucralose for a while
Because they'll
be 5 years behind the curve.
They
every
still
time.
have full sugar drinks, even though sugar's dead, right? Like,
Yeah, but Coke Zero is like I think their number 2 mover.
yeah, it's interesting. I guess we'll timestamp this and we'll find out.
Yeah.
I don't doubt you.
I'm not gonna get mad when it happens. People are like, "Oh, this is great. We changed to natural and blah blah blah."
But the natural flavoring is getting way better.
yeah,
By the day, it gets better.
I mean, that's the funny thing with
we
last
used
night.
some of the cutting edge stevias. Like we did the best that we could.
Yeah, I was excited about that because you're gonna want to.
We got to change over.
That's our camera changeover.
Ed isn't here today.
Fucking Ed, dude. Ed's in Mexico. Is Ed really in Mexico? Mexico?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to make that joke unless he's like legitimately in Mexico.
His family lives right on the border, and so he goes cross border. Like I think his mother lives in
You want
Mexico.
another 25 minutes? Did you
Yeah.
do to both?
That one's
That
fine.
one's fine. This one's the only
We should
one.
send him to a pharmacy while he's down there.
Farmacia.
Do we need to do this one too?
I think that one's all right. Is it still recording?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were we talking about? Oh, I was excited about that last night with Sweet Vantage because, you know, like, again, this is one of those things. Like, N&B sends me like a full thing of Sweet Vantage, but I don't have a lab in my home.
Yeah.
So, like,
That's why I have it, because like I wanted the best stevia around.
I have a note to myself. I send signal messages to myself. Let's see, what time was this? Last night at 2:41 a.m., I have a message to myself. It just says, make a lab in the living room. Because I'm now single and no one can tell me what to do with my living room.
When you said you herbed
I
up,
recommend having some like hardwood or hard tile floors.
That's
Yeah.
why living room. My office is on carpet, and dude, doing reviews in a carpet room, like I'm not like a mess with my powder or anything, but like when I vacuum that room, it comes out.
it's good
Yeah.
sound dampening though.
Yes, and that's why it's great. But yeah, I'm gonna do something in my living room.
I have been trying to convince Ben to move to Texas for like 6 years now.
What did I say when we got in the parking lot this morning? We came around the corner. I was like, I know where I am. I'm ready to move. I started
Starting to
I,
understand.
I saw the King Ranch.
Did you see that? That office right there next door that was a tattoo shop, completely
It's now
open now.
open? Price
Yeah.
plow?
Give me an excuse to fucking get that.
Yeah. Yeah. I said this to Joey last night. We've been planning like some world takeover stuff for a while now.
Yeah.
I was like, I get it. You know, Joey wants the ingredient stuff. You know, you want the branding stuff. Like, I want to be the media guy.
I don't necessarily want. I want it all. Me and Joey just want. We want to completely
a vertical
integrate.
facility.
I'm going to say this on video so that like you can't
Yeah.
deny I ever said this. Like, I get it. I want to be the media guy. Like, I want it all too.
Yeah, good.
So
You're the voice of that. You're the face of that.
Yeah.
You know that stuff.
yeah, I love it. By the way, I love the man of the arena. I didn't know you had that up there. I had one made for myself.
It's my favorite quote.
yeah.
Joey showed that to me. Like,
beautiful.
Like
I've lived on
15
this.
years ago, he showed me that, and
It was when we start. Well, it was at the beginning of Glaxon because we were like, "Fuck all the haters."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's funny. I struggle with it sometimes because I wasn't always the man in the arena. I was just the guy in the video.
yeah,
So it's hard to like
the
be
guy
like,
on the sideline.
sometimes people consider me to be the guy on the sideline because
Yeah.
I'm just on video. I definitely feel a lot more in the arena.
You still
these
get
days.
punched in the face, man. Social media, you get punched in the face.
I'm the punching bag.
Yeah.
You know, like even though I'm not the guy that owns the company always or like the brand I'm talking about, I am still the punching bag. I'm the scapegoat for a lot.
Yeah, I feel that way for sure every single day.
Yeah.
And you just get emails like people like, man, like, please give me a break. Like, we're getting to it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna fix it for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I was saying, I get sent like a kilo of Sweet Vantage, and Sean Wells tells me it's, you know,
I only
the
asked for
bee's
200
knees.
grams.
Yeah, I'm joking about a kilo, but you know, they send me like a big baggie of it, and like I just put it on my tongue. You know, like,
And that's it.
so the opportunity to like do the whole thing was cool because, again, it would never translate to video.
Was there anything that you found surprising? Or maybe something you didn't know?
I don't want to give away Joey's secrets. I learned a couple secrets last night, but yes, absolutely, there were a couple of little twists that just kind of it was like add 50 milligrams of this. I'm like.
Just a tiny little amount.
Like, oh, that did round that out. you
Yeah,
know?
he does like to round stuff out with like counterbalancing things. Sometimes he's like, we need to add a little bit of this.
Yeah.
And it could be like a different flavor profile that you wouldn't
What I loved
expect.
about it was that it was surprisingly simple.
Oh yeah.
It really was.
It's like
Yeah.
stupidly simple.
Yeah, because when you see all the lab stuff, you think it's like super sciencey, but really it's just like when you were a kid making little like perfumes and stuff in your mom's bathroom. You know, you're adding a little this, you're adding a little that.
Or if you're making cookies or something, like it's very culinary more than it is like super technical, especially on the flavor end.
This is my thing. I went to school for dietetics, which included a lot of food science, and I loved it because we literally were like, I had a food lab for 2 years, and like it was like, when you're baking, this is the chemical reaction that you're creating, and this is why it makes these effects. And all of a sudden, it just became a formula to me, right? Like I understand what we're doing and why it makes the thing. And so that's what's frustrating about flavor is I talk to people and be like, can you explain to me the process here? Like, what are we doing? What are we adding and why? And what does it counterbalance?
Well, most people don't know what their flavors are.
That's fair.
Their
It's also-
manufacturers don't tell them.
It's interesting, like if I'm working with a contract manufacturer or a flavor house, and like I'll get samples and I'll taste them, and I'll be like, "This is not exactly how I want it," and I'm confrontational about it. I'll send an email and be like, "Hey, can you send me your usage levels?" Which is basically like, lift up your skirt, you know.
Yeah. And these people are selling their services
Turn
to
your
make
head
the
and
things.
cough because I'm gonna get in there and I'm gonna figure this out because you're doing something I don't like. And I've done this with like major flavor houses, and they'll be like, "All right, we'll show you." And I'm like, "Okay, good," because we're gonna tweak this. And I'll be like, "Okay, this up, this down, this. I want you to add this." And then they'll do that, and they'll be like, "Wow, that was actually really good. Thank you for telling us." And I'm just like, "No problem."
Yeah.
We're where we want to be now.
I have like this schizophrenic piece of paper of notes from last night that I can't wait to read later. It's going to make no sense.
It won't matter, but like the important thing about what I taught you last night is just recognize the pattern.
That's all I wanted, and listen, I have a lot of respect for the people in the industry that have done stuff for like so long, but like when it becomes this like proprietary art form, I respect it, but there is a science and there are fundamentals. Just like anything, right? Like make art, make money. What I loved about that with you is like you didn't gatekeep like why we're doing certain things. Like doing brand therapy with Nutrimedia and like going through revisions, like you explain it.
Yeah, well, people get excited about the art part, and there's a creative element for sure. Two things, like kind of like with Joey, like there's an artistic part where it's his preference, like he just has a gift for it, and then there's like 99% fundamental. You know what I mean? So
And
like
that's exactly what I was telling you.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
there's a couple of twists and spins and stuff that you can do, depending on someone's mood or how they like things.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a very small percentage of what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to learn those things. Or someday I'd like
Well,
to.
most people don't because it's not the sexy part.
Sure.
It's like when you're like baseball, for example. Like you want to like go in there and play the game and win. You don't want to sit there and take 1,000 ground balls.
Yeah.
To learn how to properly, catch the ball and
Yeah.
throw the ball. Where like that's really what makes you good.
Yeah. I've learned this in jiu-jitsu. Like
Exactly.
There are moves that look great for Instagram.
Right. Yeah.
But that is not what makes you win 99% of the time. The basics are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted
Catching
to,
someone fuck up.
yeah. And that's what I wanted to get to the bottom of last night is like, why do you use citric or malic acid?
Yeah.
Super basic question.
I was like, I have this chart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is why.
And all of a sudden,
You
it's
pair this fruit with this level of citric or this fruit with this level.
like a huge surprise. I mean, and this was like the funny thing. Like, I was sitting there and I was like, wait, wow, the citrus fruits use citric acid.
Ding.
Like
Yeah, it goes back to Joey's Planet Earth stuff, He just like
Yeah.
if you boil it back down to like what is it fundamentally, on a caveman level. Like,
and I knew that was out there,
Yeah.
and like, I get it. Like if we're making, we're making like the next crazy thing, there's going to be some dialing to do. But I wanted to understand because now when I look at labels, I understand little basic things and I can pull out little basic things. I don't know flexographic and all I call you for that. But especially for my purposes, understanding the basics really helps me understand when I'm like getting a first impression.
yeah.
Which is great.
There's a lot of little things, but
By the way, we're drinking these peach ghosts. These are the print-on-can versions, which is no longer a textured label. Have you talked about this on the podcast yet?
no, but when we were doing Expo Energy, we got to go to McDowell Label to print those. John always has like little nuggets. He's pretty good about keeping all that stuff locked away. But he had out the peach version with the basketball texture. And he was like, check this one out. And I was like, John, that's the coolest label I've ever seen in my life.
Thank you so much for saying that. I
said
talked about this yesterday.
There's nothing more creative, more beautifully done. The color is just like, it's so perfect.
That can is the perfect can, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Like the Swedish Fish is, I mean, that's another great usage of the technology.
Yeah.
But, and that's like my favorite thing about this whole thing is like this, I think like the peach can is like the one where it's on both. And so you can see the difference. And like, I want to talk about the print on can part because I know you'll have a lot to say and I have something to say as well that I want to finally see on video. But the funny thing is that like that peach textured can, in my opinion, is like the perfect energy drink can.
It's the best. I'll come out and say it is the best label I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I would have never
it's a
thought
shrink
to
sleeve.
pair basketball with peaches, but it worked.
You can,
And then they use the doming as the stippling.
Texture, yeah.
You hold that can, you're like, I have felt this basketball texture my entire life. It makes me think of being a kid.
And the use of the negative space of that gloss as what the black like rubber part is, brilliant because it's a natural property of that shrink sleeve.
I wish we had one here to talk about in the comparison.
And so like they matted the backgrounding of where the stippling is, and then they put the negative space where usually like on a basketball, like rubber would be.
The in between the bumps.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of sandpaper on the bump, I think, right?
Well, in between it on the back part. And yeah, it's just that's exactly what a basketball feels like. And they're using that technology that they have there in exactly how it's intended to be used, which is like to replicate real world applications. And in that case, they got that same technology to feel and look exactly like a basketball. And I just thought it was brilliant. And that color, you can only get that color on Flexo. If you notice this color, this is womp womp compared to that color. Sure. So to get technical, can I do it for a second?
To go technical, and then I want to talk about like the whole thing.
Okay. There's different color systems with different print technologies. When you're doing digital, you're using CMYK. Same thing on your inkjet printer that you have at home. They just do it for commercial uses. HP has cool technologies where they do this thing called extended gamut, where you can add purple and green into it to get more vibrancy. So like the HP digitals can get like the brighter colors a little bit better. There's Flexo, which usually uses like what they call offset printing, right? So like it's a ink color per each plate and then it runs it. But you can use Pantone. So you can go to these Pantone books and exactly pick out the swatch and say, I want this color, and they'll color match it to that. That spectrum is usually a little bit larger. So you can get more vibrant colors on Flexo, which is an example, of that peach. If you go and look at that peach, you're like, wow, this peach it's peaching. It's popping. It's because that's ink like you're painting it on a wall. It's not little tiny dots like on a digital machine. So it's just more vibrant, more solid of a color. They call them solids. That's literally what they call them. And then when you go to can, they use a different color system. That's called INX. So INX's color gamut is way more compressed than both of those other color gamuts. So if you could think of a book of color swatches, digital is like, this. Pantone is like a book this thick, where INX's book is like this thick. So you only have like a third of the color options. And also the way that it prints on there, as you can see, you can kind of see through the can.
Yeah.
So
see through the paint.
You have to white back that stuff in order to make it more vibrant, but that means an additional pass. And you only get 4 to 5 colors on those trays for those machines. So if you use that white twice, if you hit it twice, that means you get less color to use on the can. So if you have any... see these little elements right here?
I was just going to bring this up, yeah.
So the little flavor elements, let's say you have a very complicated flavor element that uses like multiples of different shades of blue. You have to then compress that to one color of blue.
So you're telling me this one green right here, that used up one of their passes?
One tray, exactly.
So they had to decide, like, is this little green worth?
Yep. Exactly.
Now let me ask
But
you
you can
another
see
question.
on the peach the little dots on the inside of the core of the peach.
Yeah, but
Yes.
it's using the same color
That's
as
using
this
the peach.
orange. So what they're doing is they're just using a
it's a
screen in order to basically make it look different with less dots.
Let me ask just for
Yeah.
clarification. There's like, let's say there's like 3 different peaches here, right? The soft, the little bit more, and then the deep. Those are all 3 different passes.
That might be one.
So in some cases, they'll use different screen amounts in order to get like, remember I talked about solid just a minute ago?
Yeah.
So little tiny dots in these little screen passes, they use more little tiny dots or bigger dots in order to get like the solid color, which that screen may be like a little bit tighter and let less ink through it. And that'll get a little bit lighter of a color.
Got it.
It's called screen tones.
Checking out the dogs.
So, yeah, if you want to bring Piper in, she's probably just hanging out outside. So they could have used two different ones. I don't know exactly how they did this one. Or this could all just be the same color, and they just passed it with
Different
that one screen. But it's
intensities,
basically all, exactly, different intensity of that same tone.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Thank you for doing that. I think we have to get into the controversy of it, though, which is the statement that Ghost is no longer using textured cans, which is a fallacy in itself. But the switch from, Ghost's entire brand identity being these incredibly textured cans with huge experiences to now having print on can.
I mean, it's obvious.
There was a statement made by Ryan, and they came out and said a bunch of things. I don't want to say anyone's wrong, but I think that like the takeaway message has been misunderstood for a couple of different reasons. They talked about environmental impacts. They talked about the cost. Or not the cost is like the final thing, but like the other topic about like there was another topic about different touch points and dealing with vendors and stuff.
like being more recyclable. What was the other one?
It was the different touch points, right? Like they can do this all in one place.
They could do it in one place. Okay, so
it all exists. I don't really know what I want to talk about. I think the big message that I want to bring home is like every time I do a Ghost video about this incredible new flavor, I get comments like, Ghost's flavors are so good, I can't get them locally, and I'm so pissed off about that. There's always like this discontentment about not being able to get it. And I think that while I love the message that Ryan put out, from what I see with consumers, the big takeaway message really needs to be that if you love Ghost, if you love the flavors, and you want more availability, this is how that happens. Yeah. Like having print on can available for the large distribution go-to-markets allows them to be a little bit more economic and get it to more places.
Sure, you can say that is a result of saving of the cost savings.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
It's also easier to manufacture something like this in more locations.
I'm just
yes, that's the argument.
Yeah. And I'm just saying that's the big positive. People want Ghost available more places. This is how it happens. And the peach can is a great example of that because they have this incredible limited offering that is probably the best can of all time.
LTOs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think
I'm glad they're doing that.
I think that hasn't been spoken about enough. If you are excited about these big, Ghost like limited offers, like really cool things, those are still for the most part going to have texture cans. I'm not saying all of them, but like that's still a lever they can pull. But if you want them to be everywhere, so you can get them at every convenience store in America, every Walmart, everything everywhere, airports, whatever.
I think that is kind of weak. Okay. Like you can still add a sleeving machine on any of these. It's just KDP and these guys don't want to do that.
I mean, it's part of growing up as far as being a beverage brand.
But that's like the maturity in the room of like, okay, this is part of growing up.
Sure, but it's ultimately down to money. That's what it is. It's money. We all know that.
Yeah.
The cost savings of this is in the several millions of years.
But my point,
millions of dollars per year.
But like that's an okay thing to say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. He should have just said. This is where I think the core value systems of the brand is that it's built on authenticity. So he should have just said that. And he did say it on like the last bullet point, but he should have just said, this saves us a lot of money a year, and the powers that be, the way that they're set up to do it, they do it this way, and they said that they're going to do it this way because it saves them this much money a year. They could still just run sleeves. They could possibly go to other label printers, or RLG could then install other facilities in other places to print more labels. They could install sleeve machines on all their can machines. Like it's very possible for them still to do all that stuff. The fact of the matter is they just didn't want to spend the money to do it. That's what it is.
I believe that.
That's just what it is. Like all that stuff was very, very possible to do. It just cost a little bit more money, and it's a publicly traded company, and they don't want things to cost more money. They want to make more money. That's what it is. And that's totally okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just say that.
Yeah.
Just say that. And then you can make the argument about recyclability. You can still recycle the sleeves, but they want you to remove the sleeves and then separate them because they're two different types of materials that need to be recycled. But who does that anyways? You can even make a big argument about recycling and the economics.
Single stream and this whole thing.
Yeah. So like there's a whole nother argument there. So
I just think like I like to cut through all that stuff because like it's, okay.
Go back to the branding value systems of authenticity.
Right. And so I guess on that topic, there is something that I think and I think it's kind of a funny topic, is like there had to have been a meeting at some point where they said, what costs more and what is more authentic to us?
I could probably
This, right? Because like this costs something, right? These extra ingredients.
Formula, yeah.
You can't tell me that wasn't brought up by some point. That's by someone.
well, yeah. What do you do?
compared
What
to
do you do? Change the formula or remove the label? That had to
have been brought up at some point, right?
I bet you that conversation probably happened while negotiations for the purchase was happening, and they were like, "Well, we're going to do this. You got to be okay with that."
Yeah.
And they were probably like, "How much money again?" And they're like, "This much." And they were probably like, "Oh yeah." Okay.
I find that fascinating.
Yeah,
So you go back
yeah.
to the topic before about like the different lenses that we wear. Like I feel, and I don't know if anyone else agrees with it, but I feel like if there's a Venn diagram where like TK and Joey, I'm like in the middle because I love both. I love brand
Anyone
identity.
would have done
and-
the same thing, dude. Like there's people who listen to this who are like entrepreneurs just doing startups, and they're probably like super brand homers, and you should be at that point. But like, go and talk to like high level C-suite blue chip executives. It's a no brainer. Like this is the decision that you need to make. Like there's no.
Well, especially for like the flavors that they've already had in the marketplace for like a super long time that are like the evergreen, always going to be around flavors.
Yeah.
Well,
Easy to go to print on can.
I mean, is there's an alternate reality somewhere where they cut the formula but kept the textured can?
Do you think either one, the choice in either path would have made a difference? I think as long as it tastes the way that it does.
Well, okay, let's just look at logistically on like what is simpler to do in order to do cost savings faster. It's as simple as that.
Have it canned somewhere else with the print.
Yeah, so
that's so
you
fucking limited.
You have to redo the art file. So you have to, if you look at cans and you look at them really closely, you'll see separations between every single color. When it goes from one color to another color, there's a very thin silver line. So they have to put that on the art file. So when you send in an art file to print on can for INX, the people on the other side on their art department is adding like a 0.0125 deviation of. It used to be kind of called trapping, where you overlap, but it's the opposite of trapping, where it actually knocks out to can. And they do this so that it has deviation, because these things go by these lines so fast. They're like lightning fast. So they don't want the colors to overlap and then create a odd color, because they're still kind of wet ink, right? So if you add a peach and a purple, then it makes it more like a brown, right?
So poopy cans.
So they used to do that, and they called it trapping. But the registrations on these have gotten so tight now, they go the opposite way, and they just add that tiny little gap for silver. So they have to reset up every single art file to do that, which takes time, but it's, let's say, I don't know, what do they have, 20 SKUs? Let's say it's 20 flavors. I don't know how many they have. Maybe could take a good design team 3 months to change all that stuff over, if they're quick.
So you say that changing the formula would have...
How long would it taken to change the entire supply chain for the ingredients? I mean, that's a Joey question.
If you take shit away, not that long. They literally have a silver line on every single letter.
I was spending time looking at that for a second. I think it's an interesting, the multiverse, right? Like there's another world where they change. Yeah, and I think it's funny because they came from sports nutrition, right?
I have heard whisperings of what the cost savings is. And the cost savings is enough to make any C-suite executive say, I could do this in this amount of time and save this much money, whereas I could do this other thing and it could add this level of complication and potentially save this much money. But, one is going to save us money faster than the other. I think that's what the decision was.
I guess the point that I was trying to get to is that, you guys have taught me so much, especially you, on branding. And I have come around to, what this means and the label change and all this. But I am still a sports nutrition nerd at heart, and I think so are the guys at Ghost for the most part, especially Dan. And I think, when you say authenticity, it comes back to the fact that as sports nutrition guys, they felt they were delivering good formulas in a digestible way.
They are.
And and that is still authentic. Not that anything is inauthentic, but the formula not changing feels like it's more true to their overarching campaigns
of authenticity.
Of delivering.
Look, you have to assume that KDP probably ran some sort of market studies, and they determined that making that change would not make too much of a Yeah, there's maybe 1% of the consumer base who really cared, but they're probably bought it anyways. We're still buying Ghost.
Oh yeah.
You know, so they're still going to buy Ghost. They're going to be mad, but they're still going to buy Ghost.
The day they move to a proprietary blend on there, that's a red flag.
That's what I don't know. I feel like that would be. I think a lot more people would revolt over that.
All of our type of people,
Yeah.
But at this type
mainstream
of
is too late.
But people buying Dr. Pepper, Pepsi, Coke.
Totally.
Yeah, so
I totally understand and agree.
Yeah, and that's where they're going to be, and that's where they're at. So
Yeah.
that's just the reality of it, and good for them.
That's kind of just like my moral at the end of this is like when people are like aren't you going to freak out or aren't you pissed off, whatever. Like I would be bothered if they changed the formula.
Look, a lot of people be really pissed off if they know what me and Joey are trying to do right now with the other stuff that we're working on, because we're trying to dumb down supplements too. Or Joey is in a way that's
because more people need to learn.
Yeah, exactly. And we're trying to make it more accessible. He is, you know, and I'm for it. But like the truth of the matter is that opportunity that we're working on behind the scenes is 100x, 1000x bigger than the 20 something ingredient pre-workout. You know, it just that there's a difference
Because there's
between
more people that don't know than know.
Yeah.
But I think that's an opening up of an opportunity. It's not like switching people over.
It's just having the vision and knowing the difference.
It's about taking people who know nothing and lifting them up and trying to bring them into this more educated crowd.
Exactly.
Yeah. Supplements should be more accessible.
That's another 25 minutes.
All right, I'm going to switch.
We take a break? No? Keep riffing?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so me from an entrepreneur standpoint, the opportunity is far greater.
Yeah. But that's new. That's blue ocean. That's new people. That's right. Like I support that. I love that because like how many people either think that supplements are the Wild West or just don't know about the opportunities or the benefits they can have in their daily life.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because there's a lot of stuff like maybe there's not people going and buying single ingredient in acetylcysteine at lower income type of like retails, right? Like you'll see these things at a GNC and at a vitamin shop. Maybe you'll see it at a HEB.
Yeah.
Probably not at a Kroger or HEB. I don't know.
You're starting to.
Maybe at
in the pharmacy section.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Exactly. But like, there's just there's categories of things, all different types of ingredients, single ingredients and compounded like products that like you can get bottom dollar for and place them in places, but brands generally don't build their brands to be that. You know, there's like NutriCost for like Amazon and stuff like that, but you didn't have to. Let's look like C4 for example. Like
we're gonna have to show you some of the labels we're working on.
Yeah.
You'd be like, it's so dumb.
Yeah.
That it'll work.
You have to have the Chrome series, right? And then you have like sort of like the Walmart series,
right.
And then you have like your premium series. There's a good, better, best sort of thing. But like there are budget options out there, but they're not. It's not that they're not sophisticated. They're just not. It's just like they're just selling something for somebody. And what Joey's is like, well, we can educate this customer base too.
Just a little more value.
Yeah, and give them a little bit more value, and that is just a huge larger customer base.
I love talking to people that don't know what I do and don't know us and don't know anything about this whole thing and what they buy. It's fascinating, right?
Yeah. Well, think of like your parents.
Yeah. I use the parent test all the time.
Yeah, like my dad is always like, hey, I saw this Nugenix thing and I bought like these 10 bottles of blah, blah, blah for like only $300. I'm like, you got totally ripped off. Come to me next time. You know, I've been giving him Alpha 365. I went and bought a bunch from the local GNC and I gave it to him and he was like, man, my blood pressure's down.
Yeah.
He's like, I feel good. I'm sleeping well. And I'm like, it's just simple stuff, man. It's not that complicated. But like,
beautiful.
But again, you know, who wants to go and spend $100 at GNC for that like test booster kind of thing? But the reality is you can really get it down like to less than $30 and have a very good test booster. It doesn't necessarily have to be $99. It's just that's where the market's always been. You know what I mean? And what the margin is and how it works at like the GNCs and the retailers and stuff like that. But like, you know, what if you took the Nugenix approach but made it like a really good test booster and made it more accessible and put it in stores where those people shop for the most part.
And take the whole Sesame Street kind of approach when it comes to getting people to understand what it is and what it's for. So,
well, it's funny because like
going from Supplement Lab to Sesame Street.
Yeah.
But like if you, it's funny to me because like these companies for so long have sold cheap shit to consumers who didn't know.
Yeah, like my dad's never going to go buy Alpha 365, but he buys Nugenix.
Sure, because it's great marketing.
Well,
They've got
they
like a
have-
But a
fun-
terrible formula and a proprietary blend, and like at the end of the day, is kind of deceptive.
But the funny thing
It's
is,
really deceptive, and the whole pitch and the offer is deceptive.
Yeah.
Like if you buy
They've got
3,
Celebrity endorsement,
Super
all
Bowl
that
ads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, like, at the same time, the core industry is now selling essential formulas that are close in cost. Right? Like,
Yeah.
we have like these cheap proprietary blends, but then we also have these cheap essential formulas that are actually delivering good shit. And that's been like a lot of fun for me over the last couple of years, is starting to do these projects where people give us cost of goods that like are admittedly a lot lower than we'd like to deal with, ideally. But it's starting to work.
It's kind of like how that Basic brand. I think they're coming up with a similar approach.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's pretty smart. I would make it. I would go different with the look, but yeah, I think it's. If you look at economically, if people are going to tighten their belts and their wallets, like it makes sense to have offers for a wider range of
I
people.
got to get you guys out to that manufacturing facility.
Yeah.
It looked good.
I love.
It looked like it might be in my top 5 as far
Yeah.
as what I've seen before.
Yeah, I loved being there because I thought so much of you guys because they're similar. We talk about like this, make art, make money, fundamentals, whatever. Like these guys, like all they do is volume. That's
They
it.
look like high throughput.
Yeah, like it's like when you need a Walmart run, you call them. Don't call them for your, 50 brick and mortar, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
when we did a tour, when we walked through the quarantine facility in the morning, I mean, no joke, 20 pallets of just bottles in quarantine. When we went back through later in the day for a second run of the tour for a couple photos, the whole room was different.
It's like hundreds
Gone.
of pallets.
Gone.
Oh, they just went through it all.
Just went through it all.
And a whole bunch of new shit coming in.
All of a sudden, the room that I was in that was full of plastic bottles was now full of Alpha GPC.
When you talk about plastic bottles.
Dude, I did one hook that didn't end up making the cut because they had I was in a room that had $4 million worth of maltodextrin. And that didn't end up making the hook because it was maltodextrin.
I remember seeing it, but still, that's a lot
There's
of
so
malto.
much parity about the definition of volume.
Yeah.
And just so our audience can understand, we see the whole gambit of somebody who just wants 100 of something, and then someone who wants 100,000 or 1,000,000 of something.
When I was at NutriBio, when I walked in, I remember I got a tour by the customer service manager, and they were contract manufacturing at the time. And I remember asking how much contract manufacturing do you do? And she was like, whatever, there's a number. By the time I left, we were doing none. And I remember the first time when we launched into GNC, we signed, go do the Pittsburgh thing, sign, get it, whatever. And it was like, holy fuck, we got 6 weeks to do this.
Yeah,
We have
how
to
are we
go
going to
now.
make this? Yeah.
We need money to buy all the stuff.
You got to do all this right now. And I mean, Glazier's super, he's able to do that stuff. And that was super cool. Then they did the Walmart launch.
Yeah, it's almost 10 times more.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, it's another scale.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
yeah.
Now imagine doing that for Sebum,
And how fast they had to scale on everything.
right?
Yeah.
Because all the love
Yeah.
in the world to NutriBio, whatever, but launching a multivitamin for NutriBio into Walmart and launching Chris Bumstead's signature pre-workout into Walmart, those are two different numbers.
Yeah. I know both of those printers, so I knew what those volumes were because I had to deal with the lead times.
Because they got in the way.
Yeah. That's
Your
what
projects.
people were like, why is my thing blah, blah, blah? I'm like, well, because there's this one brand that's Monster, and we're using similar printers, and we're the back of the line because you want to order 1,000, and there's somebody else who's ordering 300,000. They're going to do that one first.
To go a little bit further on it, you're back in line because when they order 1,000, they're, what kind of terms can I get?
Well, yeah, there's, it costs this much. Can we get this price?
Yeah.
And blah, blah, blah. And the big companies are great. They just wire the money.
Yeah.
They just
We'll
pay
pay
Chris
in advance.
Bumstead's
Yeah.
where do I send the money?
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah. So you want to do those that, again, the parity and the volume thing, as you get sort of leveled up, volume dictates everything. And if you're just starting, you just don't have any leverage for anything. So you kind of got to just hang out in the back of the line, unfortunately, until you get your role. And that's just how it goes. And yeah,
A great piece of advice to all the small brands out there. Do not set your launch date until you have product in hand.
exactly.
Because you're going to get upset at your manufacturer. You're going to get upset at your label guy. You're going to get upset at a whole bunch of people. And quite frankly, you do not control any of those variables.
Right.
The only variables you control are when the product is in your hands.
Yeah. 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 You're competing for all those vendors too. And those vendors are trying to support their customers at the best capacity they can. If somebody's coming in with millions of dollars worth of business and they're being demanding about it, like you kind of got to do that first. You know what I mean? Like you don't have a choice. So like, and that's not just us or the label printer or the manufacturer, or, you know, it's the flavor house, it's the ingredient supplier, it's the whole gambit. It's the bottle supplier, the plastics. So there's all these different variables in which those guys are
not going to drop everything for you.
Right. They're gonna eat
Why
that
would
steak.
they?
They're gonna eat the steak first before they go to
Right.
know.
It was funny because Nutrilabs that does basic and great. They did a really funny buffalo chicken protein for April Fools, and they ran a small amount of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, you guys can run. It was a really small number because it was just a promo.
Yeah.
You know.
Sure.
I was like, you guys can run that little amount. They're like, well, we can do 4 bottles if we want.
Yeah.
But why would we do that? They're like, don't tell anyone that we did that, you know, because like I don't want someone calling us for that.
I'd like 4 bottles of my
Yeah,
But
pre-workout.
people don't realize that while the amount that you can do could be any number, the cost it is to get the people in, the cost it is to run it, the cost it is to clean it, that's a set amount.
Yeah. There's two things. There's
You're not going to run chocolate after buffalo chicken.
Right.
you go.
And that, like, the amount that it costs to
Get
clean the
orange.
line costs the same amount whether you run 250 or 4 million.
Yeah, we call that fixed cost, and there's opportunity cost loss. So those are two things that are like
Yeah.
they're weighing down on this part of the seesaw.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you only have this much volume, you have to balance that out with volume.
Right.
So it's that stuff's fixed. It's built into the pricing that you're getting.
Right.
So on the label side, for example, the machine itself, let's say you're using an HP Indigo digital machine, which is like what most of our customers do. The fixed cost on that machine is $175 an hour for just the machine. Okay, then you have to consider the ink and all of the consumable things that go into that. There's consumable pieces and parts and towels and tape and stuff that you have in like a warehouse, right? So then you have to include $25 of that per hour. So you're at about around $200 an hour. And then you got to consider the labor and the electricity and all that kind of stuff. So to turn on that machine to run either one label or to run 100,000 labels on that same hour costs between $200 to $240 an hour.
The robot gets paid a lot.
Yes. Well, they're financed.
I know, but
and HP knows the quantity of ink and every single foot of material that runs through that machine, and they charge a royalty for that.
it's on the cloud.
Yes. Yeah. So that's another thing people understand. These machines are
Monitored and metered.
they're monitored, they're metered, and they're financed, and they get a royalty for every single one that gets.
It's kind of like your water meter or your electricity meter on your house.
So people need to understand that.
So that 1
there's a
hour,
cost.
if you said, I would like a sample, can you print me a commercial sample? Okay, that 1 hour that they have to change over costs that company $225. So they're going to charge you, if they want to make up for it, $250, right? And they're like, oh, I can't believe that one label's $250. That's where opportunity cost loss comes in. They say, well, so-and-so company was that was running 100,000 on that same line. That PO, we could have netted out like 25, 30 grand
Right.
in that hour.
It also takes time as well. So we're
Yes.
like I'm commenting on top of that.
Yes.
Just to start, the line costs this much. Then it costs a certain amount of time to do it
And pay the humans.
and pay humans. Now, you have a queue, right?
Yeah.
Of like, let's make up a company that has Raw, Ghost, all these people in a queue,
Could have like 80 jobs in there.
and then
Yeah.
you've got Joe Schmo.
Well, it's like being in line at a hamburger stand, and you're behind the guy who's ordering 700 hamburgers.
or at the
know.
checkout line at the grocery.
Yeah,
And you're buying a
they've got-
water bottle.
Yes, and they've got a whole bunch of
some hot
stuff.
dogs.
Yeah, not all these print companies have like they have multiple lines, but it's not like they have a self checkout. You know what I mean? So like, you got to stay in line. You got to pay the cost for that whole thing to operate. And what they're trying to do on their end is they're trying to gang all their big jobs up at the front of the week. And at the end of the week, they're going to run those small little ones. So like if you order anything under a certain amount, they're going to put you at that small grouping that gets ran on Friday. And if there was a lot of that small grouping and it didn't make it Friday, guess what? It goes to next Friday.
Right.
That's kind of how it works.
And this is why, like, you go to Simpson and they can do all of it. This is why other companies exist. Like PTM is like a third-party innovation lab that they can do those samples for you.
Right. So like there are boutique options.
Sometimes those boutique options, they can save the real contract manufacturer a lot of time.
Exactly.
Yes,
And it's funny because
you don't have to wait on R&D samples and stuff, because if you're working with a little boutique guy or even like a boutique labels, like you guys designing labels, like if that was like a service as part of the turnkey, who fucking knows how long that's going to take? You work with an external person. I've got this job done. I paid some money over here. I got this job done. I paid for R&D over here. I got this job done. So when you go to your big co-man and you've got all these things done, they're like, okay, I'll work with you because I don't have to do X, Y, and Z. And that might actually get you to the front of the line a lot faster.
Very true. Yeah.
Yeah. I have had so much, like, I want to say personal growth in this, but like when I came to you guys in 2020 in Glaxon, like I had come from NutriBio where we were running small lots and I was passionate about big scoops, efficacious doses. And now I've gotten to a point where like I understand all of it. And I still empathize for the small brands that want to go to McDowell or Simpson does all sizes, but like they want to use Armada. Here's like, right? Like or Nutrilabs. They want to use the big guys because they're the big cool guys, but they don't understand why it costs. There's table costs to get in.
Well, it still costs the boutiques that much too, but they're just willing to, because they're still growing their portfolio.
They also and Armada was passionate about this for a while, being an incubator of like taking those small people, working with them and helping them, like subsidizing it or however they were doing it to help them get up. Like people forget that Armada is a huge company now owned by Pernova that's got those huge contracts, but Ghost was the first people on their lines because they were able to work with them as small and allow them and help them to grow. But that's why PTM is helpful, because you can get something done in a special
it's funny
area.
that you say small because like they launched into GNC.
Fair, yeah.
Okay, so like they're still running minimums probably around 30,000 units at a time per SKU.
Yeah.
Okay, there's people listening to this podcast now who are like, I'm just trying to do 500.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of parity between what is volume.
Yeah, that's so funny. I remember when they did CGV2, I think my NDA probably still covers this. I won't talk about someone else's numbers too much, but I knew how many they had run at that time. It's small compared to what this is.
Yeah.
But even at that time, it was like, wow.
There's nothing wrong being with small. You just have to understand it's going to take you a little bit longer, and you're not going to get the leverage to negotiate your pricing.
Yes,
so and you can't negotiate your time, and you can't negotiate your pricing.
Yeah,
with
and
that volume. It's a balancing act. So
at that volume, you got someone who can get real technical.
Yeah, and this is also like without talking about quality as well, right? You talk about quality.
Well, if you go to a good quality label designer like us, we're still going to give you the same service. It's just going to take you a little longer.
Right.
You're going to still get a good R&D from somebody like Joe. If you go to a good quality manufacturer, they're still going to make your product good.
Yeah.
You can still get quality.
But there is still like a line of like, as people are more comfortable scale, they understand quality a little bit further. We go to someone who specializes in 200 bottle runs. There's a little something.
Yeah, they don't have the portfolio yet in order to establish themselves for those large brands, so they're growing too. So that's a good fit for that type of person. But there's like certain bells and whistles they don't have because it just simply like isn't economical for their business.
You have to be a little bit more. And we're getting into a different topic here, but when you go to these smaller places, you do have to do a little bit more auditing. You have to do a little bit more handhold.
Sometimes you don't get the luxury,
right?
Because like they'll do that volume at this price.
Yeah.
And like that's what you need in order to get to launch to prove product market fit. That's totally fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
People just need to understand, right? Like when you go certain directions, you have to deal with certain things. And there are implicit reasons why that occurs.
All right, let's take a break, do a little pee break, then we'll come back after that.
What's up, everyone? TK back here. I'm going to talk to you guys about the Suppworks podcast. For everyone that's been listening in since we started this thing in January, I just want you to know that we are so damn delighted to have you guys as listeners. The audience has grown, the engagement has grown, the viewerships have grown. It's been pretty wild to see. But with all this growth, it comes with quite a cost. And that's why the Suppworks podcast is looking for sponsors. Now, we have started off with some sponsors in the beginning, and they were great partners. But to be honest with you guys, I never really charged them because I didn't feel like our audience was large enough to basically pay for whatever cost I was having to expend in doing the podcast. And just so you guys know, these podcasts, they cost a lot of money. We got to fly someone in. We got to put them up in a hotel. We feed them. We usually take them out to some sort of event. It adds up. It costs quite a bit. And we subsidize these costs with sponsorships. So if you own a business, whether it's in manufacturing, you're a raw ingredient supplier, you own a brand, maybe you have some sort of supplement or CPG type service that applies to the supplement industry or the CPG industry as a whole, and you think that our audience, which is usually movers and shakers within the CPG industry, you're talking CEOs, owners of businesses, top sales executives, and then the whole gambit in between super users all the way up into founders of companies basically listen to our podcast. If you think that audience is for you and it would work for your business for us to advertise on this platform, hit us up. Just send us a DM. Send us an email, tk@nutrimedia.co, or send Joey a DM, and we can talk about our sponsorship packages. And basically, you get this. You get a 1-minute table read where we talk about your brand, and obviously, this has got to be something that we approve of and we support. But if there is a good partnership there, reach out. Maybe we'd be interested in having you as a sponsor. So if you want to sponsor the Suppworks podcast, just go and hit us up, and you can have your table read right in the middle of the podcast while we do our breaks, just like now. First of all, I want to preface this. I am not a packaging expert. I want to learn more about it.
We want to get our packaging expert guy on the show.
We do. So
if you're watching,
Johnny?
Well,
there's two.
And also
sorry.
Paul.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I really want Paul to come on
He
and
really,
talk about
yeah.
this kind of stuff because he knows it
No
better
offense to
than anyone.
Johnny, but yeah.
Johnny knows it too.
We'll get Johnny on too because he's working on something that's
running?
going to be really cool.
That's running, yeah. So tariffs is the big issue, right? That's a big subject matter of how do we navigate this? And I think
The trade wall.
Ingredient-
The great trade wall of 2025.
there's two main components here. There's the ingredients,
Yeah.
which you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And then there's the packaging, which now I'm having to deal with. And from my perspective, when we're designing brands, one of the first things we ask is, what tub does it go in? Mm-hmm. Is it black? Is it white? Is it clear? Is it PET? Is it HDPE? Is it this big or is it this big?
Would you like a custom color with that?
And then,
Right.
and then how much powder, which can change. When we were doing this one, how many times did it change? Because
Lots.
the serving sizes were going up and down, and the amount,
How long did it take us to launch that? Probably 8 months.
we started this. I started having calls with you in March last year, and it didn't launch until the fall.
I still think that's remarkably good.
Yeah. Well, what was so
for
funny?
all that custom, yeah.
What was so funny is Tika and I were working on the AN job with this all last year, and we were simultaneously doing Expo Energy. And I know for a fact, Darren went back to the team was like, you see what they're fucking doing in 6 weeks over here? It's not, and that wasn't a fair comparison with what we did there. But
that probably just pisses people off because they think that we're distracted. The truth is some things just move smoothly than others based off of the variables of which you can control.
well, I think that they were I know for a fact that multiple people saw us do it, and they were like, why can't we move at that speed?
Yeah, well, we made choices specifically for speed.
Yes, we were just streamlining.
Yeah.
But we also had collaboration behind us too.
We trusted everyone that was involved in their vertical and said, you take that and I'm not going to argue. The difference is with companies and small companies and big ones is there's always everything is by committee. With small companies, it's like your cousin, your wife, your friend, your business partner, and then you all go back and forth on this and that and this and that. And every time somebody tosses an idea, they don't understand the chain of events that it puts into place.
Yeah.
That's going to change everything.
Yeah.
Size of label or amount of powder that goes into size of tub changes size of label.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to resize a label. It takes several hours. Every time. So even if you designed it and you're like, oh, it's done. It's just a couple clicks, right? No, it's not.
Nope.
We charge by the hour. It's going to cost you a couple $100 more every time. And then you do it 7 or 8 times. that couple $100 now turns into a couple $1,000.
I remember a specific call Joey and I were on where we were like, this thing we're doing, it was like in the middle of the call, something happened. We were like, TK's gonna be so mad at us. But like we trusted.
The thing about a 16-ounce can and why I love doing
we had
cans,
this whole project that we were doing, and we thought we had tubs and everything figured out, or we were in bags. Now it also be sachets, all of it.
I get to do it all over again.
And that's a big
It
change.
changes the net weight too, which has to happen on the manufacturing side, which then they have to go reflavor it, and then they have to basically. Sometimes they don't know the net weight until they're ready to batch it.
Yeah.
Which
So-
they won't. I mean, if they've got the net weight, they got to figure out scoops, and then that could change scoop size. Like, there's a lot of variables.
Yeah. So
And then you're between scoops and stuff. And
Yeah.
Yeah. The weight on a supplement is usually listed 3 times in a compliance parameter. The scoop per weight, the amount per serving, and then the net weight. But also people like to put call outs on their labels of like how much of something is in something. And then somewhere else on the description or something like that, sometimes they like to put the amounts. And sometimes they also like to put like a call out for how many servings per container. So if you change the weight anywhere, there could be potentially 10 other locations on your label that need to be exchanged.
Fallout.
And no one thinks of that. Even our designers sometimes miss one because we're like, how many places is the weight like being dictated?
Yeah.
Yeah, you take out one ingredient, the trickle down is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then you get like 2 grams of electrolytes. Like not really a call out of the sodium, but like a call out of the blend of all of them together. Like
Yeah, so
all over.
Sometimes you have to rearrange the entire SFP, and sometimes that means you have to change the real estate of how much that box takes up on the label. And
Back to packaging.
Well,
though.
sorry.
Let me tell us like a little bit. Like I had a really cool behind the scenes view of it. Like we were in California 2 weeks ago, and TK and I were staying at a house together, and I got to be like behind the scenes watching him having a really interesting conversation that I got to eavesdrop in on about all this. Like we're talking about ingredients and the tariffs there, but so many of these like custom packages come from China.
all of them, most of them.
Most of them, yeah.
So there's. So
90
this is what I've
plus %.
learned. There's manufacturers in Canada. There's manufacturers there are some in the United States. There are some in Mexico. There's some in Indonesia, India, and the bulk of it is China. Now, when we design, almost everyone wants something custom,
Right.
because that's how you dictate differentiation in your brand a lot. And something that's really hot right now is soft touch. Everyone wants soft touch in one way or another. So it's my understanding, and again, this is why I want those 2 individuals to come on, because they know better than I do. But it's my understanding that there are very, very, very limited facilities in the world that actually apply soft touch. The soft touch application to make that. There's a few other differentiators. Like there's some people that do something kind of like soft touch, but it's not actually soft touch.
Do you know
Like
how this works?
The natural HDPE.
Do you remember
plastic?
Plastidip? I'm sure you in Drift
Well,
like
how it works is kind of.
The similarities here.
I'm gonna get to it.
All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to it. From what I understand, and this is why I really want Paul to come on, because I know he knows, but also I know he doesn't want to say it. That it's sprayed on like a powder coating,
that's what I believe.
and the soft touch, but the finishings. So like there's PET and there's HDPE, which is the type of plastic it is. HDPE is sort of a naturally frosted. Look, give me that. So this is for the camera. This is a natural plastic. So this is unadulterated HDPE, virgin plastic.
No color.
We call it natural plastic.
So that's what comes up with that opaque look
It
to it.
has like this frosty, opaque look. And what you see in HDPE on like, say, a colored tub looks like this. It almost has like a matte look, right? So if you want sort of a matted look without soft touch, you get HDPE, because that's kind of the cheapest option. Now, you can get that made in lots of different places. But the thing is these are very popular. So these are made in mass quantities all over the world. So like, let's say I want American-made tubs. There is an option for that. And they're making this right here, right? There's the CBMs of the world, right?
Can I just ask,
Berlin packaging.
like the gloss effect and the like?
The gloss is PET.
Got it.
So this is a different type of plastic.
Got it.
I think it's a little thinner. I don't know exactly the composition of it, but anything that's sort of glossy and shimmery is PET. Anything that's sort of matted it is HDP. That's a good thing that's just a sort of rule of thumb to go by. I'm sure it's way more complex than that. And then the molding is different. So like each version has its own mold.
There's blow molding and injection molding.
Yeah.
All the lids are done by injection, but all the tubs are done by blow molding.
Right. And there's different costs associated with those two different types of technologies as well. So from what I understand, if you want a custom mold, if you want a custom shape, you have to make a mold. Now, to make a mold in the U.S., I've been quoted in over 6 figures.
What?
Because of the machinery and the economics involved, and it's over 6 figures. To make a custom mold in China is less than $10,000. Way less, actually.
Do you think there are people in the U.S. who are just buying them from China anyway and just upselling?
That's what I'm getting at.
Okay, let's keep going then.
So if you see soft touch and somebody is a bottle seller and they're saying, yeah, we can do soft touch, there's a good chance they're probably just brokering that out, because as far as I know from the research that I've done, and I've been going down this wormhole, and again, this is all hush-hush stuff. No one lets their secrets out.
Right.
Of where they get their stuff from.
It's all one
It
big place.
all leads to one place.
Yeah.
Soft touch basically leads to one place. And that place is, where is it?
RTCO.
China.
Yes. So it is subject to 145% tariff. Period.
As of this second, and that is another factor too.
It may change.
It can change
Yeah.
the next second.
So that bottle you have in your hand,
This is the one. I mean, I saw it first.
that 8 ounce is nothing special, right?
Right.
So you can get that mold made in lots of different places. But if you want a soft touch, you basically want to get it made in one place.
Yeah.
So we're working on a project with that bottle right now. So you have 2 bottles in your hand. One is
Hold them both.
HDPE, one is PET. RTCO is the only guys that are applying secondary.
Take the lid off.
Secondary.
Or is that white?
Yep. Look at it. You'll see
That's what's cool about
it's a
this.
natural plastic.
Right.
Right.
It's natural plastic.
So those 2 bottles you have in your hand, the one in Ben's left hand on this camera right here.
Not
it
before
looks
by
like
its
on his right
commonplace
side.
appearance.
And that's
HDPE.
PET.
They're both soft touch and they're both powder coated with a gradation of white coming down halfway, then turning.
I didn't
clear.
notice this is a gradient because it's HDPE.
Right,
But the gradient is the new thing, right? Like the
that's
soft
what-
touch been around for a bit. Core protein from Cellucor 2012.
Yeah.
You guys did that back then. But this gradient is the new special thing that
That's a new tech they have.
I saw this for the first time at supply side.
Right. So that's one we've been working on, that one that's in your right hand, left on the screen, on the camera. And we've got a lot of clients that want some sort of variation of this same technique, which it's 2 passes. There's the mold, which that in that case is PET, so it's 100% clear.
Because you can see this is, yeah.
And then you powder soft touch it, and then you what they call silk screen, which is the inking. And previously you did solid color, right? I want blue. Pick up that AN one. Solid color, right? The whole
Right.
thing is just blue. That's just a blue pigment on the actual blow.
The actual bottle is HDPE, but the
Yep.
soft touch lid, yeah,
PET with the powder
with
coating.
the powder coat, yeah.
soft touch, yeah. Exactly. So
And then you silk screen on top of it. That I wanted to ask about that because
yeah.
I saw they're basically printing right onto it. Is that, do you get that from China as well? You just get it straight from there? Now, let me ask you, when I change a label on that silk screen, does that cost a new plate of some sort?
It's plate fees. So
Yeah.
it's just like Flexo on their end.
So every time you change your sodium content, it's a new plate fee.
Yep. For silk screening.
And there's a minimum order quantity.
Of course.
It's
Yeah.
gargantuan.
Of
which
course.
the Chinese ones are way lower than the ones in the other places.
Of course.
So this is kind of what brings me to this. We're talking boutique.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to navigate a way in order to find a boutique option for American companies in order to get cool, semi-custom bottling. Meaning like the things that are sort of trending, but we can more or less crowdsource it, which is exactly what all the other bottle companies are doing.
Right.
They're crowdsourcing all white HDPE and they're just selling hundreds of millions of it because so many people have it. But there's not enough appetite for the boutique brands. First of all, they can't order 100,000 at a time. They only need 10,000 maybe. You know, some of them only need 1,000. So like, how do you get that shape that's sexy and then you can add custom elements to it? Maybe it's an embossing in the lid. Maybe it's a pigment. Now, again, unless you want to do 145% tariffs as of right now, you're not going to get soft touch unless you want to pay that. And if you're going to pay that, you might as well order a full container. And a container for that bottle, that 8 ounce right there,
So many.
is about 110 to 140,000 units.
Can I
So
ask,
that's like your minimum if you want the best price for shipping.
if you were going to crowdsource these, you'd get them in just soft touch gradient, and then someone here would silk screen it?
I'm not going to China.
Okay.
I want to go to a different country where I've negotiated a mold price. So the problem is they don't have that mold. They
Right.
do only custom molds at the places that I'm looking at. So I want to buy all the molds for these bottles that we have in front of us. And once we have them, we can then crowdsource a certain volume to get here and store here, and then sell them off in smaller increments of meat.
But they would come in looking like this.
So I want to do natural plastic because a lot of the stuff we're designing right now, we're using that clear sort of look, that semi-opaque, transparent look. And you could get very, very diverse with branding using that style. Now it's real. Look at AN, for example. They've owned that color blue.
Right.
But that is the only bottle that company makes of that blue particularly. So they have to have the volume in order to pick that up to make it make sense for them economically.
And that's obviously, because of the size of Applied Nutrition, they
Exactly.
can leverage that. That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's why everyone uses either white, black, or clear.
Because they're making
Millions of them. And you can buy those in the U.S. And that's the problem that we had when I tried to do the American manufacturer. I was like, well, can I do a boutique option where I crowdsource and get 100? Can I get 100,000 of these? And they're like,
Yeah.
right.
They don't get out of bed for 100,000.
They don't. And then I also wanted a particular shape. I was like, I would like this shape. And they were like, oh, yeah, great. You can buy a mold. How
Yeah.
much is that? Got a quote. And I was like, no one is going to spend 6 figures for a mold.
Right.
So I found a place that will do a mold for a reasonable price. It's more than China, a good bit more than China. But they can do the smaller volume amounts around the 100K. The shipping price, a little bit more because it's coming from India, not China. But when you look at it, it's fractional when you divide it between a couple 100,000. So what I want to do is get a handful of brands that we've actually already designed 3 of them that use that very 8 ounce HDPE natural plastic. So I'm trying to get them all to agree to a certain quantity, and then once I get the price on that, I'm going to just buy the mold.
Right.
And I want to buy a whole line of molds, so then we can have that, and then basically like kind of crowdsource them, and so that way we can get them over here. And if they want custom lid things, they can just pay the mold for the lid.
So it's going to be HDPE and a custom mold of yours.
For right, I mean, ideally we do both.
Right, of course.
But again, that's the problem. Is
Gotta
everyone
walk before
wants
you run.
something sort of specific, and I need to find something that enough people have an appetite for. And this is exactly what all the other bottle brokers in the U.S. are doing right now. This is not like crazy different. Just the difference is they're more or less focused on generics
Sure.
because that's the
Yeah, commodities.
right.
It's like selling citrulline.
Right.
Yeah.
So no one is really focused on, well, I want something a little bit more
Yeah.
custom. Like if you go in, let's say you want to buy a house and you don't have the money to buy a fully custom house, but you want to buy a house, you want to say, but it'd be cool if it had a 3-car garage. Can you do a 3-car garage on this? And they said, yeah, it's an additional this much money.
Yeah.
I'd like them to be able to have the option to say, if I want to pay a little bit more, can I still get the things that I want? And it's like, yeah, but you have to sort of work in this framework. Because right now, there's not really an option for it. Mm-hmm. And I've talked to lots of different bottle suppliers, both here and in the neighboring countries, and their volumes are just don't work for startups. They just straight up don't. So, and like the China equation is just like, you're not going to order a minimum of 2,000 of those, spend 10 grand on them or whatever, and then it get here and then spend another 15 grand.
Yeah. Can I ask that mold, can you do HDPE and PET in that same mold?
You're
No.
looking at it.
No, it's the same mold, but it's not the same mold.
It's not the same molds?
I do not believe so. I could be wrong.
It's not.
Sure.
Because you can see the rim,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, those are different.
but boy, are they close.
They're close.
Well, I mean, it's an 8-ounce bottle. Everyone's
It's
used to
the
that.
same threading.
Sometimes they're different. And actually, no, I think that's a different. That one might be.
I just put the same lid on both.
Yeah. So,
That doesn't mean that it's exactly
but
the
it's
same species.
from what I understand, what I've been quoted, it's 2 different molds.
Yeah.
So if you want it to be clear, then it's the mold for the PET.
There are very subtle differences.
I mean, it would make different. It would make sense that different compounds
Oh,
will act
I know
differently.
where you got this.
Yeah, it says it right there on it.
Yeah. Doesn't? Is it under the sticker?
Look, I love that bottle manufacturer, and all the biggest brands in the world go there now.
Yeah.
All
I mean,
the
it
ones
makes
that are
total
custom
sense.
Go there now.
But but I mean, this is the same conversation we had before. Why does Ghost use so and so, and why does pick your $5 million brand? Why do they use someone else?
Yeah, and Ghost has done a really good job of hiding their vendors. They do that on purpose, intentionally.
sure.
And like, lucky for you, if you listen to the Suppworks podcast,
You can figure it all out.
I've gone and figured it out, and I don't, I can say it out loud because like I don't got any NDAs on anything. I just have figured it out through years and years of talking to people over WhatsApp, at 11 p.m. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, so
But that's the kind of work that a lot of people are not willing to do.
yeah. So I'm trying to find a way to do it, but the way that I found is that Nutrimedia or some other entity we make creates their own molds and then starts making them in lower, what is low quantity to a bottle supplier is like in the hundreds of thousands. So making them in that sort of quantity instead of in the millions. And getting them stored somewhere, and then working off of a framework from the design conception point of view, where it's like, we're going to design your packaging around this plastic.
Yeah.
But like it's a little bit different than what everyone else is doing. But you kind of have to come to this boutique option and work within this framework.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have options, but you don't have unlimited options.
So a lot of ways you're using the trade war
Yes.
to come up with new solutions.
Yeah.
And then, if this had never happened, we wouldn't feel the pressure to make these changes.
No.
And obviously Canada and Mexico are kind of options for importation, but then there's these other countries that are capable of making bottles.
I think TK would have always done it, but the pressure is what's making it happen now.
Well,
I'll give you that credit.
And I want to I don't want to make it seem like I'm like overly opportunistic. This is built out of necessity because we have 4 brands literally that cannot launch right now because the entire
It's not
design
cost
was
effective.
built off of this bottle and everything. Like because we, for example, you've seen the new fish oils from Ghost, like the basics line. Right?
That's this. That's
have
exactly
that?
this.
Yes.
I wish we had it right now because it'd be a
Yes,
great
yes.
great
But
talk about.
I'd
Did you
also
take it
wanna-
home?
No, Forrest did. He's gonna bring it back Monday.
Fucking Forrest.
But I had been thinking of doing that for a really long time, and when I saw it, I was like, "Sons of bitches!"
Yeah.
Because you can do so many cool stuff with the clear label.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Is I actually didn't realize this was soft touch until I took the lid off because the HDPE is already kind of opaque that the gradient doesn't really land.
Yeah, but put pills in it and you can see them.
I believe you. But like the clear is more impactful.
Yeah, so we actually want the PET. That's what we want.
It looks so good on the inside.
I mean, dude, I wish
For that one.
I want to go. I have.
But you have to do soft touch in order to get that specific type of application. It doesn't work without soft touch.
But like, I think I have some B-roll from supply side. The concepts that they had at that booth were so cool. And you looked at it and you're like, I mean, we were doing Expo Energy. We thought that was really cool. This was, I mean, the execution they had at that booth of like how you could use this, it was like mind blowing.
yeah.
The
let's
silk
look at
screening
the
is
new
amazing.
Alpha Bomb from, C4. It's a custom bottle.
Yeah.
And they've probably spent an insane amount of money getting that, but they have the volume in order to dictate that to do it. So, you just have to have the volume in order.
But that's how this stuff works, right? I mean, you could talk about this with clothing, right? You could get blanks, right? Joey's wearing a normal blended T-shirt that's probably printed on a blank from China. That like that's cheap. I'm wearing a completely custom cut shirt. If you are ordering however many typically people like Ghost, for instance, go to cut and sew, right? They do completely custom shirts.
Well, in some cases, this shirt that I'm wearing right now is from the exact same broker that Ghost uses for a Chinese workshop facility that does like Nike and Under Armour.
Right.
And so they're they're doing the same thing that I'm talking about for bottles, but for apparel.
Exactly.
They're creating a boutique option where they can leverage their volume in blanks to get something that's semi-custom, and this is technically their cut. This company that they use is their cut, but this is the same exact shirt that Ghost uses.
And this is a funny thing right now is
What
like
you're wearing is 100% custom. We had that designed by a fashion designer.
Right.
And every part of it was completely custom made.
as your volume goes up, like the difference to go custom, it becomes negligible at a certain point, right? And to have that custom impact, the value of that becomes infinitely more like valuable to make the swap over, right? Like Ghost is already
There's
doing
also
so much.
intellectual property and all kinds of things that go in it. So like that shirt you're wearing, for example, we own the rights to that. So it's highly valuable. But at the volume that we ordered those shirts at, not many people could do.
Right.
We did it because the investors in the core culture were like, we want this, and they had the money to do it. It wasn't economical by any means. And people go to the core culture site and say, why is that shirt $60? It's because it costs like $40 to make.
Buy one and find out is honestly what I always say. Like Joey got his first core culture pants this morning, and I'm going to plug your company right now pretty hard. Like I won't wear other pants when I travel. Like they're the most comfortable things ever.
They're great, yeah.
Wait till you start feeling like the exhaust vents in the butt and you're hot.
Really?
Bro, when you start sweating on a
Butt
plane,
exhaust vents.
Yeah.
you're not wearing the pants right now. There's like right above your hips, there's this like exhaust like vent. It's like one way out, like all the sweat.
It's like the fishing shirt, but pants.
Oh man, the chafing must be non-existent.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, well, that was custom designed by somebody who used to work for Champion, Lululemon, and did some work for Nike. And if you go to the Pacific Northwest, like Beaverton, where Nike is, there's a whole economy of custom fashion designers.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them that are contractors. So we found one, and they designed that entire line. The fabrics.
Insane.
The fabrics are custom. We came up with the fabric, and we also came up with the dyes. So we had to source raw fabric, and we had to source raw dye. We had that made in Korea, and then we had to be shipped to Costa Rica to be dyed, and then shipped back to another facility across the world in China in order to be sewed.
Is it white before it's dyed?
Yeah, it's like a neutral color.
It's like a I mean,
Which, like, when you talk about origin, like Jocko guy.
I was gonna bring this up.
Yeah, like that is incredible, and that's what honestly that's given me the inspiration. That's given me a lot of inspiration for what me and Joey are talking about with vertically integrating. I know it can be done. I know it's not going to be cheap. I know it's not going to be easy. I know it's going to be a premium, expensive thing, and it's going to be listed that way. But it is possible.
A part of that story that doesn't get enough credit is the town that they are in, like, used to make sneakers for a lot of big companies, and when all that that manufacturing went overseas, those same people are just sitting there not working.
You read Shoe Dog, right?
Yeah. And it's incredible. And now they make Origin boots, which are insane.
That's crazy too.
Yeah.
So that story gives me a lot of inspiration, knowing that it's possible. And so when people are like, "You can't do this here, and you can't do this because of that," I'm like, most people won't.
Yeah. I like the.
But again, this goes back to there's like opportunity because somebody wants to make more money, and then there's necessity because it has to be done.
Yeah. The jiu-jitsu analogy before of what Joey said about like finding the fuck up, finding like I play a pressure game and I can take what I want, but if someone gives something up, that's the direction I go. And that's how I feel a lot of times. Like the origin story is a lot of brute force of we're going to do this no matter what. And it's not going to be easy. We're going to lose money. We're going to make it happen.
It's written to the value systems.
Right.
That
Well, I think
Absolutely.
the trade war introduces like kind of a series of fuck ups that are just opportunities everywhere.
Right. Like India right now, possibly Trump and India are negotiating a no tariff partnership.
That is the avenue we're working right now.
And when that opens up, it's like, it's not like let's lose money. Like Origin finding all their stuff in America was like a very tumultuous journey, right? But
Yeah.
if you find an avenue where there is less pressure, you take that direction.
Let me tell you, it's a great idea to go to India and own the 8-ounce mold there at their facility. And when you own the mold, it's like your intellectual property.
We should have Uday come on the podcast.
I love that guy.
So that's why I'm saying, like, I mean, I have the capital to do it. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Now, that doesn't mean there can't be competitors. Like, that mold is not unique. There's lots of people who have a mold that's similar to it. Now, you got to change it up a little bit. Some of the dimensions on it have to change.
Gonna put a little unicorn on the bottom, right?
We're going to put our logo on it. Yeah. But yeah, like that's the idea, you know, and it's pure economics. That's what I love about it, because I love economics. I talk about that a lot. And it is a huge opportunity, but it's also a necessity. So like somebody's going to do it. Who's going to do it? And whoever does it is helping, honestly. Like it's actually, it's for the better good, because what it's going to do is help create it. If there's a 0 for 0 tax for India, for example, then our bottle prices actually will go down.
Yeah. Literally, like,
Yeah.
the direction that opens up, you go that direction.
Yeah, and you know, with the goal of figuring this out and then eventually finding a way to bring it here.
Right.
So, and that's where like me and Joey have been talking, like, how do you do everything here?
Yeah.
All right. So when it comes to the ingredient side of the business, because that's kind of like where this conversation is kind of going.
Yeah.
There's so many things that come from China, and it's a point where it's like, should this trade war go on for a long time? Like, most wars last years. That
It almost has to in order to
necessitate what we want to do.
Yeah. Which pisses everyone off.
Well, yeah, it pisses everyone off, and it makes us a bit hawkish at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
It takes what it has to
there's
take.
still opportunity, and to bring these jobs like. So with we just did NPA Fly-In Day like this week, and probably one of the number one things we were talking about was the onshoring of American manufacturing of ingredients, because it's a serious vulnerability, and it applies to all vitamins. Like the majority of vitamins come from China. A huge majority of amino acids come from China. Now, we did get a lot of those tariffs kind of like grandfathered into what's called the Annex 2, where there aren't really huge tariffs on certain chemicals. But to bring those jobs to the United States, I mean, would be cool, high-paying jobs. And, it is chemical engineering, but like when we offshored all those jobs over to China, the technology that was available to create those compounds created a lot of pollution. It wasn't, very good for the environment. But now, what were we, like 30 years later, that you can make these things relatively clean, or not relatively clean, extremely clean and pure with zero
mostly
pollution.
automated, right?
And automated.
Yeah.
Yeah. In 2022, I went on a podcast with you on Goon Day, and I remember Hordening was taken off of the advisory list.
Right.
I asked you, like, are we going to work to bring it back? And you were like, in the time it took you to say that sentence, I thought of 3 better ingredients to use.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes how I feel about this is like, how much work are we going to put into bringing these ingredients to America when there are other directions we could go that, like, it won't cost us all that money to do, and we can get the same job done.
Think about how cool.
But, I don't believe it's going to be like one individual or entity. I think it's going to be a co-op of hundreds of businesses.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. But you understand what I'm also saying is that, like, sometimes ramming our head into a wall, like, we're so focused on bringing, talk about creatine a lot.
Yeah.
Bringing creatine to America. But,
Man,
like,
would that be cool?
It would be really, really cool. But, like, something like 78% of it's made in China.
More.
Not according to the government's imports.
78?
Apparently. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, the German one is lower than you think it might be.
Yeah.
It's something like 14%.
But what other, I guess, like maybe Indonesia or Malaysia or some random Southeast Asian
There's like
country.
4 other countries that like haven't made, but it's like single digits. I don't know the answer here, but I'm just saying, like, sometimes, like I think that you found a lot of more interesting things to bring here.
I mean, that's our adaptation to the trade war. Like, and that was something we talked at last year's Fly-In Day. It was like back of the list priority,
Yeah.
but now it's front of the list priority. Where the onshoring of these things, like whether it's plastics, whether it's vitamin C or creatine or whatever, bringing that to America, like think of the people that like have shit manufacturing jobs now. If they could make that instead, and it would be like in a more high tech, like high paying kind of environment. Like
I do have a hot take on that, is that I don't think that reshoring of these ingredients will always lead to, like, if there's 100 employees in China, I don't think there's going to be 100 employees
No,
here.
it's
I think we're going
not.
to
It's
automate a
automate.
lot
Yeah,
of
yeah.
it.
It'll be closer to 50 or 25.
Yeah, I don't think people
But
want
the
to hear
jobs
that
that will be
answer.
here will also be high-paying jobs.
And there will also be new jobs we didn't have.
Yeah,
Right.
so-
Right? And that's a big thing.
And
But I
carving
difference
out new
is-
industries
Is
that
it a
didn't
labor
exist.
job that it's like you pay somebody between
right.
$12 and $20 an hour, or is it somebody who has like a salaried position
Right.
that's like 6 figures?
Like we talk about Nike Shoe Dog, right? Like, you know, if we brought that all to Indonesia or, you know, wherever, if we brought it to America back right now, it'd be done by robots.
Yeah, and the quality probably wouldn't be there immediately.
Yeah, but it'd be great for the economy. It is money that's coming back to America, and you know,
Yeah, the problem that poses most of that is just getting the equipment here, and then like what they're willing to sort of let us have over here.
Right.
Because for example, going back to plastics, like that company has talked about and is very, very aggressively trying to get American-made molding here, but they're not interested in bringing their soft touch over here. So like they're keeping. And I don't know if it's a
technology
environmental thing, if it's an intellectual property thing, or if it's just simply a money thing, or if it's like a government like, hey, no,
We
we're
can
not gonna
find a guy who's got a fucking car fabrication body shop who does powder coating and all that stuff. And we can get him to just take his mind to this and all of a sudden figure this out.
yeah, you need a Chris Ritter type.
I agree with
Yeah.
you. Yeah. I think
I got guys who make fucking hot rods that'll give us metal flake. Okay.
yeah.
So
but I need soft touch.
Some like sick pinstripe.
But we could get what we need here. It's just the need isn't here.
Yeah.
And there are people that paint cars that are artists that would be like, I can figure that out.
But I don't know what the secret sauce of the formula, that creates soft touch, and whether or not that goes through that equipment fluidly or not. Like,
This has been a fun thing that happened with this whole trade war is like all of the manufacturing facilities over there coming out and saying like, oh, you like your Prada bag? Well, that's actually leather from this facility. And they tell you it's from Switzerland or whatever, but it's actually these guys in China.
Well, in that case, I don't feel bad at all.
Yeah.
Because the margin of profitability that these companies are putting on this is sick.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't care that your Louis Vuitton is made in China. If you're spending $4,000 for it here, you did that because it makes you look rich. Like, the whole branding is part of the exclusivity of it.
There was a recent very large expose that a lot of very nice watches are not made in Switzerland. About 88% of them are actually made in China.
Talking about Rolex, I do know a guy who works in Pittsburgh for Rolex, and they make Rolexes here.
Yeah.
Some, I don't know how many. But
yeah. It's not what they all say it is.
Yeah.
Because what you just said, the brand identity is made around Swiss made. It's literally right on the crown.
Yeah.
And so.
And there's someone in a Chinese factory putting that face on that watch.
Yeah.
Maybe, potentially.
Yeah. Right? And so. I don't know. I mean, if this has been a thing for a long time, like unauthorized Jordans, it's the same fucking facility in China, just put them out the back.
I think the argument for that whole subject matter is that Americans just don't need to spend that extra amount of money for that stuff, because that just goes back to that conversation we just had about there is actually a lot more margin in some of this stuff. So, like, there is budget options for the same level of quality.
Yeah.
It's just that that's what branding comes in.
Yeah. Like China, we wanted to go to China this year, and I remember Sean was like, "You want to get a custom suit in China? Because it's like a tenth of the price over there to get like a fully custom suit made." Like the stuff that you can do over there, because they have all this, and I'm getting with the IP thing. Like that, I believe that's part of the reason is because if it's over there, you'll have your custom mold, but like the work that you pay them to do, I'm not saying they'll give your mold to someone else, but they're learning based on your work.
Yeah, that's why I think it's okay to spend $100 for a pair of Origin pants, because I think that the quality's there and it's worth it.
Yes.
But is it worth it to say that those same pair of pants is $4,000? No. The Origin could still make money off of making those pants for $100.
Yeah.
And their quality, and they're worth $100 to me.
Can we go there soon together? Like,
Origin?
you want to come
I
to
would
Maine?
love to.
Yeah, I'd really like
Yeah,
to do that.
'cause
One of my favorite trips I've ever done.
Yeah, so like if you're spending on Mercedes or any of these luxury brands for anything, you're paying a certain cost for brand value for the optics of looking like, because it's exclusive. You have to be in this particular subset of earners, right? And that gives you, status.
Right.
It's a status symbol. And maybe some of those things it's okay if they lower their price.
Yes.
Like, who cares? That's just vanity anyways. I'm
Yeah.
more about quality, bang for buck, value, and you can still have brand. Like, those things could all exist for each other, but then greed gets like in the mix, and then you have like ultra luxury.
Right.
And there's not that there's anything wrong with ultra luxury. It's just now there's a transparency behind it. So you're like, oh, that actually isn't a $4,000 bag.
Right.
That actually isn't a $100,000 car.
This goes into so many different topics. Like we've talked about cattle, right? Like there's different levels of cattle, right?
Yeah. There's American breeds.
Yeah.
There is a American breed.
Right. And
it's actually more economical and better for the environment than the non-American breeds.
right.
Yeah. We just need to buy more of that beef instead of Angus.
Would love to.
Yeah. It's happening. This trade thing helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
You can say the same thing with oil too. Like, there's just so many places where so like, I'm not fully against the tariff thing, even though it's a pain in my ass right now. I also see the opportunity, and I kind of see it from both angles. And I'm like, well, what is the good with the bad? I think it could be net positive in a long term. If we crack early, it's going to fall apart. Now that we're in it, we're in it. So we have to find a way to innovate now. I don't know.
There's been some really great memes about it, like little text chat where one guy's like, I'm so pissed off about this tariff war. He's like, man, it's not that bad. And the guy's like, do you know anything about tariffs? No. Do you? No.
Yeah, we're like trying to learn it every day. Like we're in here, Googling, trying to look at the documents, trying to figure out like what did Trump tweet in the past 10 minutes. Like we're trying to figure like it changes so.
When we were on Capitol Hill, it was super sensitive like that, and that's when we were there the day that he announced the deal with Great Britain, and I think that's why I had two people like step out on meetings where they're like, we can't talk right now because like shit's going down.
It's such a. I mean, I hate making content about it because there's a timestamp.
Yeah.
Literally when it posts and literally when the information is put together, and it's like the thing that I say right now might not be applicable tomorrow.
You don't even know if that information is true.
Yeah, man, that is like the hardest part is like talk about like the food dyes, right? Like,
well, you can see how that played out. You can see how he made a video about he was going to shut down self-affirmed grass, and now he's reached an understanding with industry about removing the food dyes, which is why he wanted to eliminate grass in the first place. And you can tell that the lobby got in there real fast and said, do not fucking do this. We understand what you want to get rid of, which we're okay with. Let's get rid of the food dyes. You can get an understanding with the industry. And so that's that getting walked back in real time.
I don't know if I'm going to regret going in this direction, but we're going to do it. So...
Hold on, let me pause and start and
go for it.
We got like 20 minutes left on that.
Cool. What's the name of that guy on LinkedIn that's on our board, or that's going to be on our board that Alon argues with?
Blake.
Sorry, Joey.
What? I'm getting hungry.
Yeah, we can finish this up. We'll go. So this is my problem with the Trump stuff and the legitimate discussions is that, unfortunately, the anger and outrage that he inspires, like when he posts a Chat GPT generated image of him as the Pope.
Oh, God.
Which, by the way, like everyone needs to understand, it's a really good content play by his content team.
I love their content. I think it's hilarious.
We're all fucking talking about it.
Yeah.
And when they ask Trump about it, he goes, I have no clue what you're talking about because Trump didn't fucking do it. You won't be mad at Trump. It's a bunch of millennials having a ball of a time posting shit to Twitter.
Yeah.
Just shit posting.
Shit posting, and you're all talking about it. That is what they're doing. They're not doing it because they think that it's a good thing to post him as Pope. They're doing it because we're talking about it.
It's ratings. It's bad news.
It's
is
all
good news.
working. And if you want to argue about it, you're doing what he wants or what his team wants. And that's the big thing, right?
It's the modern way to communicate.
And so then you go on LinkedIn and you have Blake arguing with Alon over, like, I could not fucking believe this. I'm going to say, like, we want Blake to be on our scientific board, so I'm not trying to talk badly about him right now. But he was making a case for why food dyes, artificial food dyes, are a good idea in America, because in low-income areas, that's all that's available at the C-store. Like, you should be able to buy these shitty foods on EBT or whatever.
Yeah, well, Joey's trying to solve that.
We'll get there later.
But this is the whole thing, right? Like, RFK comes out and says, I'm working with the industry to come to an understanding to bring down these food dyes. And all of a sudden, people are all pissed off. Like, he's not actually doing that. What does he have to say? What could he actually do to work with these people? He can't do this. He's not actually doing legislation. He's doing, what is it called? Like performative politics.
Rulemaking and
Yeah, and it's not actually legislation. And then 2 weeks later, the industry is working on lowering it. And everyone said, well, here's the big issue. There are not enough natural dyes approved for usage. And
then
all
they
of
got
a sudden,
more approved.
They just approved 5 new natural dyes.
Yeah, so it's
performative
de facto
politics.
Working.
It's like, wow, collaborating with the industry is a bad thing now? What we're supposed to all go to, like,
how does the government who regulates have enough knowledge and information to apply to industry if they don't work with industry?
And this is the huge thing, that I don't give a fuck what you have to say if you haven't been to DC and talked to these people, because when you sit down and talk to these people, you understand what's happening. These people get elected to represent their constituents. They have no fucking clue what's in foods and supplements.
They really don't know
They have
shit.
no clue. And that's
couldn't
okay.
give a shit less.
Right. And this is okay because they, every single day, 300 20 days a year. They have people from dental associations, the oil associations, the cattle associations. One year we were there walking in to talk about supplements, walking out, there's a bunch of dudes walking in cowboy hats to talk about cattle. You don't understand, these people represent their constituents. You're probably right. They don't give a fuck about dietary supplements. They care about what their constituents make, like tax dollars and revenue for their people, what that does, right? It's our jobs to go there and inform and advocate for ourselves.
Yeah, give them solutions.
So like this asinine like thing about like being mad at RFK for trying to work with the industry instead of passing laws, like it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I mean, we've been talking about collaboration.
It's making change happen.
It is. And like, there have been some things that I haven't agreed with, like the self-affirmed grass thing. Like, I really didn't appreciate, and I think it was a bastardization of what actually happens.
Yeah.
But that was because I don't maybe really agree with the way that it actually is right now, right? And so like, the self-affirmed grass was maybe a quote-unquote loophole that we benefit from, but it is what allows Joey and me to bring something from China and actually get it into the market without having to go to the FDA.
Or even more from China. Like that, we get stuff all over the world. And that's like one of the things about the trade war is that, yeah, we can make vitamins and minerals and amino acids and stuff here. But at the same time, they have an entire book of herbs that are traditional Chinese herbs that don't come from here. Like, and we were talking with Pierre last week, like, and he's growing some of these things in captivity like it's a goddamn zoo. And, but that's like the only way that kind of adaptation can happen. And Pierre's going to fucking kill it right now.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's coming from Europe. He's going to build a facility in the United States, and he's going to do these things. But not everything can happen that way. Some of these things are wild crafted, wild harvested, and you're not going to grow that on American soil because it could be an invasive species and we could throw our whole ecosystem out of adjustment.
And people, when I called you when I was doing that video about tariffs, you gave me really great perspective on it that I've really used a lot, is that like, we're talking about thousands of different herbs and some of them grow on top of a mountain in Asia.
Yeah.
Himalayas.
Yeah. And like that.
How are you going to get that?
That needs to be understood and respected. That's where it's naturally made. And also those cultures do deserve to get credit for those things.
Absolutely.
Right? Those places have lived off that stuff for so long, and that's indigenous to them, and we want to respect them.
However, there are cases where they are growing European milk thistle.
Right.
Yeah, but you can get that on the side of the highway here. Like, why aren't we growing milk thistle?
Right.
Good point. I think it's wise to approach this as, even us, first of all, we're idiots, but we probably know more about this stuff than most people know
I
about
like to
this
think
stuff.
that we ask the right questions.
Yeah.
We at least know more than the congressmen that are making the laws about it.
Sure, but we now know enough to know that we don't know enough. And
Dunning-Kruger effect, right?
there's still a lot to understand about this. So when people have hot button sort of like first reactions on places like X, like, you kind of just got to throw that out. It's just not coming from a place of let's learn and educate ourselves about this, and then
They just want to put out their hot take, but like,
Yeah.
we're actually there. We're willing to learn. We're willing to put in the effort to try to make these like positive changes and to try to make the best of a shitty situation.
Yeah,
Right.
I like the strategy of like re-auditing everything
Yeah.
and then renegotiating everything. I like that strategy. So I don't think it's going to come easily at all.
Right.
But I also don't like things to be easy.
Well, I mean, even that thing where
I don't want them to be that easy.
But that's the great point,
He's criticizing RFK. It's like, bro, like you are a left-leaning fella, and everything you're saying is anti-progressive.
Yeah.
And why are all the people on the right suddenly trying to be progressive? I mean, like, this,
Well, that is the funny thing.
this is
growing
like
up.
a weird post-COVID kind of like switcheroo thing of the parties.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, true.
But in RFK was a Democrat to begin with.
Yeah, I'm careful to get into this topic because I think
Because now-
exactly what you're bringing up is that
There's a
when you-
lot of blurring lines going on right now.
when you start talking about one side or the other side of a line that, like, I think we can all agree is drawn in the sand. It is arbitrary.
Shouldn't be.
There's one line.
But there's so many people at home that I'm so hard left or I'm so hard right, but I think most people are in the center. And I think that's kind of what's going on is we're all getting pushed to the center. And I do like that because
do
maybe, just maybe, we could come up with some common sense ideas that involve both. Maybe we're going to get back to a bipartisan place where these people suddenly want to work together again, like they did back in the 90s.
Yes. And the problem is, though, that people feel the need to feel that anyone who disagrees with them is on the other side of a line, or that anyone on the other side of the line has to disagree with them, or that they have to disagree with those people based on the line.
And then it's a race to the bottom to just attack their character.
Absolutely.
And like, I think you can probably attack anyone's character if you really.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. So
right?
like, there's people who don't like me because of this podcast for yada, yada, yada. Like, it's the same way when you look at it that way. So it's like, does that really matter if they're getting the thing done? You know,
Yeah.
like, sure, that person's a piece of shit.
Precisely.
But, you know, there's a lot of pieces of shit out there.
What's the name of the lady?
We're pretty imperfect. And the whole concept of like capitalism is very imperfect, but it's the one that works.
The new Surgeon General nominated.
Oh yeah, Casey, whatever her name is.
Means.
Yeah.
Everyone's attacking this woman because she has used psilocybin mushrooms. And
I think that's a good thing.
I think she's qualified for that.
Yeah.
I want my elected officials to have experience with psychedelics and a death of ego.
Yes.
I want them to.
Yeah.
I want them to
Yeah,
be
absolutely.
exactly that. Like the Surgeon General should have a decent understanding of health outside of what pharmaceutical companies are pushing them to do.
Anyone who's done psychedelics would know that there's a B side.
Yes.
You know, like when you flip that record over, there's a whole track list.
Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah, and like when you understand like existence from both sides, at least from even a small, you know, incremental little value of that one trip or psychedelic experience you had, you
humbling.
profoundly see the world differently, and I think that's a good thing.
And I think the issue is that the issue like with progressivism or how people see like what RFK is doing is that so much about the system is so screwed up that to audit the system entirely is going to hurt people. And the system is made for certain people to profit based on all those
There's
fuck-ups.
winners and there's losers.
And when we start to audit it, like, listen, no one likes working at a company when a new boss comes in and asks, what did you do for the last 5 days?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you suck at what you do, if you milked it, then
Right.
you milked it.
There's people taking little bits of money here and there, but if you're delivering, then you don't have a problem with that. The problem is that we're not really delivering.
No.
And so when we're calling for, advocacy or for any sort of like, I don't know, making people actually do their jobs when it comes to like,
Oh my
health.
God, not that.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
There's so much screwed up already that like,
Well, it's like, all these houses in D.C. are going up for sale for blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's because those are all people who had government contracts because of this, and that.
And I
this
really-
that.
I think it's-
But guess what? There's still government contracts out there.
yeah.
I think it's really interesting because like
pivot.
we, especially going into DC and talking with the staffers and everything, those are Gen Z kids. And the older ones are millennials. And it's so strange because like even talking to them about supplements, they understand.
Yeah.
And that is not a boomer thing. This is a very nuanced thing that's happening. The new Surgeon General is another millennial, and the more this is happening, this is a reckoning that is needed to come to the United
Isn't
States
that what our generations have wanted?
because all the boomers thought everything was all right. They grew up in the great economic times, the fallout of the war, and there was like an alarmingly high divorce rate and everything. They're like. Everyone wanted to say that everything was good and fine. But at the end of the day, the kids are not all right. And they're going to fix it.
Well, they're also the future.
That's my point. Like, they're going to fix it.
And this is the thing that no one understands about DC unless you've been there or really sat down and talked to people about it is that these elected officials are not the people that get shit done. It's the staffers.
Yeah.
Joey and I sit down with 22-year-old kids in a suit that they bought at,
Macy's.
Men's Warehouse. Yeah, Macy's.
Or maybe a really nice place. They're in DC. Like,
Possibly.
Still,
But like, I have photos, hilarious photos of sitting in like these congressional rooms with like these incredible awards, and like these rooms are so old and have so much history and like rich lore with a 22-year-old kid.
It's a lot of pressure for that person.
It is.
but they are beasts.
Are they?
They are beasts.
Yeah, you talk with these kids and they're like, I get it. This is how
They
shit gets
understand
done.
the whole racket. They're like, there's a lot to it. I got in like this odd argument about like where we could put the HSA, FSA savings for dietary supplements, and would it go into the SWIM Act or the FIT Act, and how would it change the score of the bill? Would it end up costing taxpayers more money in this area, or does it need to be its own bill? And I'm mind blown that we're like getting into like the nitty gritty like of where this is going. And I'm like, am I doing this right now? Like,
I'd be interested to see like the freakonomics of the amount of Adderall prescriptions that are.
Modafinil. There's a no. This is a real thing. You can Google it. There was a huge controversy over Obama's administration was apparently consuming a ton of modafinil.
Well, I would like to see like what is the average of that same population in, let's say, Canada, and the amount of prescriptions of Adderall that are written in, let's say, Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And if there is a vast
regardless, those kids need more energy drinks in DC. I noticed that very thoroughly. A lot of coffee, a lot of juice, a lot of soda, not enough energy drinks, and I would like to change that.
We should bring a hand truck to the CRN one.
should bring Rev 7. That's a good one.
I was to say some Expo Energy, but that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk to our buddy Mike and see what he can
You like Mike
pull
Lindell
out for
said
us.
I'd bring a hand truck.
Yeah.
That was me at Supply Side last year, just walking around with 8 cases of it.
I don't know if that's kosher, but
We're not giving them money. We're just giving them drinks. But hey, yeah.
there's a lot to stay tuned for. Let's wrap for today because we got to go do other stuff.
Can we talk about what we're going to go do? Can we give a little teaser here?
I'll let who wants to do it? Someone else do it.
We are playing with the idea of doing an event, and we're going to go look at the venue.
A big event.
Why would we do our own event? Let's do this in 15 minutes. I'm not going to drag us out.
Well, I mean, we just think some events could be done differently, and we also think that we have the capability to do it.
I love these events that we go to. We have so much fun.
We do.
We do so much cool stuff. But when we sit there, and we've tried for years.
When you go to the events, very rarely do you actually sit through the thing. You're outside talking to people, and the reason is because one, probably we get more value out of the social part, but we want to create an event that has equal amount of social part, but the educational part is more interactive. We want it to be something that people actually learn at because they're involved, and we want it to be dumbed down to an actual application. Okay, this goes back to I talk about this
Want to
podcast.
provide value.
Want to provide value, but like execution is such a huge part of everything. Like knowing one thing is one thing. You always go Google, you can chat GPT, you can get information, but people need to learn how to execute. And you don't learn how to execute until you actually do the thing. And so we want to create an event that's more experiential. So like people actually have the opportunity to engage with these different types of panels, with these different types of workshops that are truly interactive.
There are very few times where I sit down for a talk and I think I really learned something from it. And I'm in a privileged position because I get to have really great
To hear
conversations.
somebody blab about, well, I did this, I did that. It's like all ego.
And they paid to sit on
They
that.
pay to do that, yeah. So we want to do something that's structured a little different. We still want to sponsor these things, but we want to sponsor them in a way that's more of an actual workshop. Like
Yeah.
when you go to a workshop, the tools are out.
Like
Hands on.
You actually play with the wood. You actually cut the. You know what I mean?
Like we talk so
You
much
wanna-
about Jocko here. Jocko got to where he did from TED Talks that he did, right?
Yeah.
Where people were like, that was amazing. Was he the one that said to make your bed in the morning? No, that was a different Navy SEAL. But
Yeah.
like same idea where people are like, this is really impactful and special.
Mm-hmm.
And Joey and I I've gotten in arguments with people on panels because they're saying shit that just isn't true. It's just not right.
Yeah.
And I think that through a variety of different ways, we can offer so much value and we have access to the people to do it. Joey and I have tried so many times.
Yeah, I think there's a certain amount of freshness in these panels that need to be done too.
Yeah.
So like you can bring in. Tyrus is a good example. Like he's so entertaining.
Better on stage personalities for sure.
Imagine him doing a
in different
stand-up bit.
formats like that are not. I mean, you can do the panel and the fireside chat and the TED Talk thing, but it's been done. So like, I kind of want to look at different formats that are just funner. That
I think it'll end up
bring
being a
fun.
balance between them because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do think that like
From a corporate professional standpoint, you kind of have to still do that stuff.
Yeah.
I totally understand that. But I also think that going back to that, like, what is the future? And it's like younger millennials and Gen Zs are, like, I don't think it's all about ties and suits anymore.
yeah.
I think there's a different culture
Yeah.
shift happening.
It's
and
about doing.
Yeah, and I think we could really champion that at an expo that's fun. And then people will leave it and say, wow, not only did I learn a lot,
I think it's a summit.
super fun.
And I know why you say expo. I'm not criticizing that at all.
Sure, yeah,
But like,
yeah, it's summit,
There
whatever.
could
I
be,
want people
it could
to-
be all of it.
But I want
I
people.
don't want to call it a summit or an expo. It's a party.
I-
We're going to throw a party. That's what we're going to do.
I
We're gonna
I
throw
get
a
what
big
you're saying. I
party.
get what you're saying.
It's all
I
the
get what you're
above.
saying.
Yeah.
But like the summit of people coming together, people coming to this like thinking really like I'm really going to get something out of this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't want to say anything about anyone because I go every single year to all of them and I love all of them. I just think that there's an opportunity that Joey and I have tried to offer, and it's not attractive to someone who does it year in year and they just want to turnkey. They just want to keep moving.
Yeah, it kind of falls on deaf ears of the large expo companies because they have a format.
It could be volatile. It could fall flat on its face with what we want to do.
Piss people off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this takes all that risk away.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I don't want anyone to feel
I don't know if
negativity.
it's going to happen or not, but let's go check it out.
All right, but before we leave, this message from ChatGPT.
Suppworks Podcast is a YouTube channel that focuses on the dietary supplement industry, covering topics such as supplement science, industry trends, regulatory updates, and interviews with key figures in the field. The hosts often bring on experts to discuss the latest research, product development, and market strategies. They also delve into practical advice for consumers and professionals in the supplement industry.
And see, I didn't even know that she knew that.